Hi, and welcome to the Nen Show Cast, the only podcast where it takes us 2 episodes to get the title right. I'm your host, Craftsdwarf, and here's MathWiz.
You're just gonna show me up. You're gonna actually get the intro right this time.
Yeah, I did.
Well, I'm here as well, not messing things up this time.
Yeah. Alright, so before we get into the discussion, you had some things you wanted to say about the title. Or the name of the podcast, rather.
Yeah, so this is the Nen Show. And people were like, "Oh, well, this is called the Nen Show. Why are you not covering Hunter x Hunter?" So I decided to make up for it by talking about Hunter x Hunter a little bit in comparison to Naruto, because for those of you who don't know, because some people don't, some people actually think that Naruto inspired Hunter x Hunter. Hunter x Hunter, more specifically in this instance, because we're talking about the Chunin Exams today, the Hunter exam, there's a lot of similarities between the Hunter exam and the Chunin exams, and then obviously you have similarities like Kurapika and Sasuke. They're pretty similar characters, and people have also said that Killua is kind of like Sasuke. I've heard the claim that like Sasuke is kind of like a mix of Kurapika and Killua, and I can kind of see it.
I mean, sure, but yeah.
Like he's got like Killua's cool exterior, I guess, but then he's also got Kurapika's backstory.
Yes, and Sasuke doesn't have like the adorable parts of Killua, because he's at the end of the day a cute kid who happens to like murdering, but Sasuke's not really cute at all. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I went through the trouble of looking up the dates just as proof. Of course, I mean,
I guess the confusion comes from like the fact that the 2011 adaptation started way after Naruto, so if you had no idea...
there was no Hunter x Hunter anime before the 2000.
No, there wasn't. That's definitely not real.
Naruto started back in 2002. Hunter x Hunter started in 2011. What do you mean? What do you mean Naruto was inspired by Hunter x Hunter? Get out of here.
But yeah, Nen is a thing in Hunter x Hunter, and we're referencing that thing, but also Shounen, Nen Show. Yeah, wordplay. That's it. Did you have anything else to say on that? Or
nope, that was it. Okay,
so next we are responding to comments. I see what you fucking said there. I read, I know what you fucking said. Thank you kindly to everyone who eviscerated my terrible speaking abilities in the comments. You were very nice about it, though. Probably, actually, most of the people saying, like, sure, kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, most people pointing that stuff out were people who posted after I linked to the podcast from my video. So they were like, these are my fans who are kindly eviscerating me. So, I mean, yeah, I've kind of had shit problems with speaking since I was young. And partly I started my channel to sort of get that in, to talk more, to hopefully figure it out. Hasn't gone super well. I mean, maybe a little, like, if you watch my old videos, you can probably see, like, oh, yeah, he's gotten better in some ways, but that's scripted content, too. So I don't really do a whole lot of unscripted content. I do have my side channel, but, anyway.
But this podcast is going to be a whole lot of unscripted content. Yes. We got hours to cover, hours of material, so you'll have plenty of time to practice.
Yeah, so I don't know, if you find the Naruto stuff, like, if you just can't listen to it, because of me, then, okay, I'm sorry, like, I'm doing my best, but, maybe I'll have my shit sorted out by the time we get to Bleach or One Piece. Who knows? Anyway, there were some more specific comments I wanted to respond to. Winsy asks, what is wrong with you two? I mean, don't stop, but I still want to know. This was in response to the list of series that we both planned to cover over the course of like 20 years, at least. There's so much, because it's like, the list is now like 2 or 3 dozen series long, and many of them are long, like really long. Like, I mean, the first 2 we're covering are some of the longest, like Bleach, One Piece, and Naruto are all over 70 volumes. But yeah, mostly I want, so yeah, that's a good question. What is wrong with us?
Only everything, anything and everything. But if you want something specific, I guess, we like anime. That's our first problem.
But we're reading manga, so I don't know how that, I don't know.
That's exactly the problem. That's why it's a problem, is because it's unrelated.
Yeah, but mostly, yeah, I wanted to thank everyone who gave suggestions, even if you had no idea what an action-adventure shonen, like, entailed. Like, yeah, Detective Conan. Yeah, that's, they totally fight in Detective... I don't know who suggested Detective Conan, I don't mean this. There was numerous suggestions that I didn't put on the list for reasons I hope would be apparent. There were some sort of middling suggestions, like one weird one is, like, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Vinland Saga, because they started out in Shounen magazines, and then they moved to seinen magazines later. Like, JoJo didn't even really change that much. Vinland Saga definitely got darker, and so you got and then you got stuff like Hajime no Ippo, which is a boxing manga, so it's technically a sport, but it's also a battle. And then if you start making concessions like that, is Food Wars, it's kind of a battle, but it's about, they battle with food? You get some gray areas. So, and then, Maho Sensei Negima starts out as a harem ecchi comedy, and then it turns into more of a battle thing later. So there's so many gray areas, and I guess we'll kind of do it on a case-by-case basis. So, yeah, maybe we'll think about Detective Conan somewhere down the line. I don't think so in that specific instance, but, yeah.
Of course, this is talking about after we've already covered all the other long-running shonens that we've covered, so we're thinking way ahead, but...
So, the last comment I want to respond to is a stuck-at-home tome wanted to talk about, basically from our conversation on clone jutsus, and because I was wondering why there were two different techniques if one of them is completely useless, because if you could tell a clone, if you could tell a regular clone apart from a shadow clone or a regular ninja, then it was a useless technique. One thing that was not made apparent in the those early chapters that was made apparent in the chapters we just read was that, and that he pointed out in his comment, was that if you have a certain level of ability, you can tell poorly made regular clones apart from the actual a solid clone or a person. So and Sakura was able to tell because she is better. There's one part in the Chunin Exams where she sees some regular clones and she's able to tell them apart because she's more skilled in that area. That was made clear in the early chapters. Which was one part of my complaint. And it's really hard to make clear, because you're dealing with something that are duplicates of characters. You can't, it's a manga. You can't just how do you make it obvious to the reader that you can't? It's just impossible. So that was I think the last comment I wanted to talk about. So you ready to get into the discussion?
Yeah, let's hop right into it. So actually, before we actually get too deep into the meat of things here, something I neglected to say in the last in the last show, because as you know, I'm an anime boy. I ended up binging the Naruto anime a couple of years back, and one of my favorite aspects of the show that I think helps to kind of, in a way, sort of make up for its slow pacing was the great kick-ass soundtrack that it's got.
Oh, okay.
So in a way, I was curious whether or not the music would kind of affect my interpretation of the scene, perhaps make it seem more dramatic than I actually really felt just because I'm being manipulated by the music or whatever. So, to fix that, while I was reading the manga, I did not play the Naruto soundtrack like I otherwise might. For this part of the story specifically, I was listening to that one insert song from episode 7 of Sakura Quest, which is not a bombastic action track at all. But even in doing so, I still thought that a lot of the scenes were still great. So the material holds up. I have solved, or at least so far, I've solved my personal question and stuff.
Interesting. So, yeah, cool. Good to know. Because I don't listen to anything when I'm reading, so it just happens. So, I don't know. So starting off, one thing I noticed pretty quickly, okay, the timeline here is, the Zabuza stuff happens, then 2 weeks pass, and then they go back to, the Konoha, and I don't know, it's because there was the little moment where Naruto and Sasuke were they're angry at each other again, back to kind of
they're back at square one, and I don't like it. There was a bit of a difference to it, they were more, I guess, embarrassed rather than outright hating each other. But it's a step back from where because you had that scene in the first arc where they come back from training the tree climbing, and Naruto's Sasuke's basically carrying Naruto back, and they look like real bros. Yeah. And no, let's just forget all that. Let's just start back at square one. Yeah. Basically.
Well, the other weird thing is this followed the Zabuza and Haku stuff. So it's they just had this really rough emotional time, and then it's just kind of they're almost unaffected by it. Was there aside from Sasuke getting his Sharingan, was there a lot of tangible changes to their character after these major happenings? I
mean, like I think you could maybe make the case that because they're children, this kind of works, that they'd kind of revert back to their like their what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but you know what I'm thinking of. Back to square one.
Yeah,
whatever.
their old habits and form and such as
Yeah, but I don't know. Like with Sasuke now, he like at the start he's kind of. It seems like he's leaning more into like I guess with how Naruto performs in the battle, Sasuke is kind of he seems. I don't know. Something seemed a little bit different about him. I can't remember exactly what it is. I guess
he is a bit more like open in some ways, like or at least a bit more trusting of their abilities too. Like later on, there's like the illusory door thing where on their way to the exam, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Sakura was definitely able to notice the illusion." You know, like he had a trust in her that he might not have before, even though she didn't do much in the actual Wave Country arc.
Yeah, and then with Naruto, I guess for him it's just kind of his goal is just like he's more driven to do what he wants to do. I don't know if there's any major character shift with him. If that's kind of what you're hinting at, that they haven't really like, I don't know, their outlook on the world hasn't changed a whole lot. I could kind of, because like I said, if they're going back to square one, like Naruto and Sasuke, I mean, basically, it doesn't seem like anything has really changed in that. Like, they still have the same goals.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect that to change, but it's just like I feel like this experience, just because they basically went on an A rank mission, even though they're still getting, like, you know, that should separate them from the rest of their peers in some way for the Chunin exams, but then they're kind of like, yeah, but like they're back at square one. You know, it's like, it's almost like maybe it's like the Zabuza arc was just a bit too dark for this early on for me not to just sort of like, and then it just kind of gets written off a bit is what I'm like.
I kind of get what you're saying here, because to make a comparison, and this will entail some spoilers for season 1 of the My Hero Academia anime, but in My Hero Academia, after, you know, they have that big fight at the end of the first arc, like, everyone is commenting on how, like, oh, they've been in a real battle, and in a way that kind of, like, they're the people everyone's gunning for. So there's, like, a tangible effect from that, whereas with Naruto and Sasuke, and Sakura as well, not, like, they don't feel like they're a step above everyone else as far as, like, experience goes, or...
I mean, I do think that's a good thing in some ways, because, you know, especially, like, Lee, Neji, and Gaara, they get a lot of hype going into this arc, you know? Like, as soon as we start hearing about them, it's like, oh, they're at Sasuke's level or above. Like, I mean, Lee's introduction is kicking Sasuke's ass even though he's using the Sharingan. Like, these guys are being built up. But, yeah, it's... I forget where I was going with that.
Well, while we're still in this early part of the arc, one thing that I was not a fan of, in the very first, chapter 34 specifically, like right off the heels of this Zabuza arc, there's that scene where, Kankuro and Tamari are introduced, but before that you have this kind of comedic bit with Naruto and, well, first of all, even before the comedic bit, though, there was this one line of dialogue that I really liked, where Naruto and Sasuke, because they are still, they're bickering with each other, and Sasuke looks to him and he says, "If you're tired of being in my debt, why don't you just get better than me?" I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, he's like egging on the rivalry.
Well, and plus he's Sasuke, so of course he's a cut above Naruto, and he just has to rub it in. But then when we get to the comedic bit where Sasuke has left, and it's Naruto and Konohamaru, also, there's another kind of interesting bit where Konohamaru sees how it looks like Sakura wants to kill Naruto, and he just puts 2 and 2 together, and he's like, oh, she must be his girlfriend. I think that's an interesting perspective, like, showing Konohamaru's childish perspective of what love must be. Not like it's a big part of his character or anything, but it was an interesting little moment. But as for, you know, this whole Sakura is scary thing, like... I don't get it. Like, no, like, it's established in that scene that Sakura is the weakest of the team. Why is Naruto intimidated by her? Like, why is he afraid that, like, she can be... Like, I can understand why Konohamaru would be scared, because she could probably beat him up. But Naruto is stronger than her.
Well, what you just made me realize, because later on in the Chunin exams, you have Sakura's confidence being called, and we see flashbacks of her with Ino, and she's, you know, being bullied. Like, she clearly has low self-confidence, so you could argue that that's Like, maybe that's part of her arc where she has low self-confidence and then she's sort of, like, gaining more of it as the arc goes on, because she does have some moments later. By the way, are you going to give your Sakura rant this episode, or no?
No, the Sakura rant is going to have to... It's, like, I'll be building up to it.
Okay, good.
I know the exact moment when I'm going to get to really dig into it, but we're still a ways off from that.
You've raised my expectations, so...
However,
just good to know.
a bit of a mini rant around Sakura is that in the same scene where they're building, like, of course the comedy is that Sakura is intimidating and everyone's running away from her. But then in that same scene, when Kankuro grabs Konohamaru by the collar and he's like choking him out or whatever, and it's like, oh my god, this guy's so evil. In that same scene, I feel like the comedy kind of undermines the dramatic edge that's supposed to have, because like Sakura punches Konohamaru and Naruto, and it's just brushed aside as comedy. But then this mysterious guy shows up and he just grabs Konohamaru by the collar, and oh my god, he's a villain. Everybody get him.
Even though he's doing less than Sakura was just doing. Yeah, but I guess, it's like, cause, I mean, he just grabbed him, but Sakura, like, straight up fucking smacked him, like, there's a bit of a difference. And, I mean, I guess, we know Sakura as the audience, so we know he's not going to hurt him, but we don't know Kankuro, so we don't know what's going to happen. I guess, like, that was what's going on there. Or
yeah, I get that aspect of it. I know I'm really nitpicking with it, but still, it's just kind of... And, like, when you've seen the material multiple times, just certain things you pick up on. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah, and speaking of around that moment, like, there were a couple bits, like, when Gaara shows up, and he shows up behind Sasuke, and Sasuke's like, oh, his stealth is gotta be almost Kakashi's level. And I thought that was interesting, because the thing about, like, especially with stealth, is, like, if you're, like, I mean, I don't really think that's true. Like, I'm pretty sure Kakashi is above Gaara, I would say. I think, like, vaguely remembering. But then again, I don't know. Gaara scared the shit out of the Jonin later when he destroyed the Forest of Death test. They were like, holy shit, what is this kid? Or I guess some of them were Chunin too. But, because if you're, like, below a certain, like, threshold, and you're looking up, like, it's harder to tell the difference. Like, if someone sneaks up on Sasuke, he's not going to know how good they were at sneaking up on him, but, like, because it's harder for him to perceive it. So it's interesting of him to say that, to compare Gaara to Kakashi specifically, because they're both above him in a way. But even then, like it's...
Yeah, so, like, if you see some sort of, like, super fast object fly by you at, say, 1,000,000 miles an hour versus, like, 500,000 miles an hour, are you really going to be able to, like, see the difference when it's so fast that you can't perceive it?
Yeah, and the example I came up with was, like, say you have 100 health and you get hit for 50, and you're like, wow, that hurt a lot. Then you get hit for 100, and you're like, okay, that one-shot me. Then you get hit for 200, you're like, whoa, that one-shot me. Like, even though the 200 is twice as much as the 100, from your perspective, they're still just as strong, Yeah. Like, because you didn't see... in the case where you don't actually see the number, you just know how much damage it did to you, So, kind of like that. Yeah, it's just... Yeah, so it was interesting. It was... Well, because it's building up Gaara in a way that, like, if Kakashi beat Gaara later, it wouldn't be, like, if that was something that happened, it wouldn't be, like, too out of place. Like, it's not like... imagine if Gaara was given a power level instead. Like, oh, his power level is 1,000 and Kakashi's only 1,300 or something like that. Like, no, that's not what's happening here, Like...
Yeah, it's just kind of a vague idea.
Yeah, I was pretty satisfied with, like, how the hype behind the characters being built up was managed. Like, and that was just an example. Because it's an easy thing to ruin the hype, but, and build up towards these characters. That's a better way to put it.
I really like
Gaara was handled pretty well.
I know I wasn't as much of a fan of Kankuro's introduction, but I love the way that, like, Sasuke appears in the tree, and it's like, oh, he's so cool. Oh, okay, well, there's a negative aspect to that, but when Sasuke appears in the tree, and everyone's like, oh, wow, he's so cool, and then Gaara appears from the tree, hanging upside down, it's like...
Right, doing something that was just established in the last arc, that Sasuke and Naruto can't do, because, like, yeah...
Yeah,
it's just,
but it's a way like you've established one character's looking cool. How do you top that? Well, let's have the guy be upside down and be super sinister looking. I just love Gaara's introduction. That's great.
Yeah. Though I guess one little thing that undercut that moment is just like Sasuke shows up, and then what the chick that was with Konohamaru and Tamari are both like Tamari's like blushing when she sees, like, they're both into him, like, immediately, and I was just like, Yeah, exactly what you...
Yeah, that's what I had thought of. That's that negative thing I was talking about. And that's the problem with not just Tamari, but with basically, like, any female character that gets introduced in this arc. Except, like, maybe Hinata, but I even think there's, like, a panel where she comments on Sasuke's ability.
Oh, yeah. But, what I was going to say is, like, every character is, like, I think the only one who isn't really, like, I guess even with her is, like, Unko, it has a connection with Orochimaru, but it's not really, like, that's, like, the only connection I can think of that's not, like, dependent on, like, gender. Like, Hinata's in love with Naruto. You know, Ino's in love with Sasuke. You know, I think Tenden even comments on the attractiveness of Kakashi. Like, that's all her personality, this arc, is Tenten's attracted to Kakashi.
Yeah, she's slightly, like, Kakashi definitely is better looking than Guy.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, it's like that's like all the character we get of her, and it's just like I guess there's another slight exception with Kurenai, but even then she's just kind of like she's placed in the hierarchy under Asuma and Kakashi because she's like a junior, you know. So it's just like I remember in one of my comments on my third Fairy Tail video, which was on how Hiro Mashima handles his female characters, like, one of my favorite comments is he said, like, he thought Mashima reminded him of how Kishimoto handles his female characters, but then he corrected himself, like, with an edit later, and it's like, oh no, Mashima's way worse, which I thought was funny, because that's how you sum up Fairy Tail, like, oh, it can't be that bad, can it? No, it's way worse. But yeah, so even though Naruto isn't as bad as Fairy Tail, there's definitely been some perceived I've seen criticism thrown around at how Kishimoto handles his female characters, and, like, looking at all these moments that I'm listing off, it's like, yeah, there's no female character, like, Anko's the only exception so far, and even then, it's like, yeah, I'm trying to remember anything negative, but I can't say much, like, she's below Orochimaru, but he's so strong, like, holy shit, Orochimaru's above Kakashi, like, her being weaker than Orochimaru is not really, like, a slight against her, you know? So
while we're on the topic of Unko, I know we have a ways to get until we actually get there.
Yeah, we're barely even through the introduction, but yeah, go on.
But there was an interesting thing that I don't think happened in the anime. I could be wrong, but definitely, like, the way the panels are put next to each other, that doesn't exist. But how, like, when she cuts Naruto and then she, like, licks his blood, I don't think that was in the anime.
I would be surprised if it was, yeah. But that's the kind of stuff that gets, like, toned down or censored, because anime in general is just portrayed as less violent than manga. Like, compare Hunter x Hunter. Like, even the 1999 adaptation didn't get quite as gory as Hunter x Hunter did in some instances. So, you know, because the manga is just allowed to be more gory, yeah.
I know that Naruto definitely cut him, but I think because the anime, like, I don't remember her actually licking the blood off of him, but because that is missed, you don't get this panel where you see the grass ninja, which turns out to be Orochimaru later on. And then on the very next, like, panel right next to it is Anko, and they both got their tongue out, so it kind of foreshadows that parallel that the two characters have with each other.
But even then, you got the Unko is kind of creepy. Orochimaru is super creepy. Like, so you got, like, building up towards Orochimaru, and, like, I didn't actually notice the parallel. That's good. But yeah, like, we'll talk about Orochimaru later. But yeah, that's a good observation. So yeah, rolling back, we'll get back to Orochimaru and all of them later, because I definitely have some things to say about him. But yeah, I guess there's not much, like, we find out about the Chunin exams as the audience, as, like, all the Jonin give their approval for their getting to take the exam, and then, you know, Gaara and all them, that's what they're for, and then Kakashi, like, I'm trying to, like, it's mostly just build up towards the arc, so I'm not sure if there's much to say. Like, Kakashi gives them, you know, he's like, oh, you guys, oh yeah, that's right, there was one weird thing, like, because Kakashi said, like, oh, you guys, you're allowed to go on, or it's up to you individually whether or not you want to take the exam. But then it turns out it's not actually up to them individually, like, they have to go as a team. And he's like, when they run into Kakashi right before going into the take the test, he, like, gives them a thumbs up and says, like, yeah, I said individually, but it's actually a team thing. But it's like, it never felt like a struggle. Like, it didn't feel like Sakura was actually going to run away and not take the exam or anything like that. Like, it was weird.
Yeah, I don't actually... I know the one chapter was called, like, Sakura's Depression or whatever, but it's really tough to buy into that when her little arc, if you can even call it that, is resolved, like, immediately in that chapter. Like, all that happens... And I actually don't think the anime included this, because I don't remember it. Like, she actually there was actually a panel of her saying, I don't want to take the exams, or something to that effect. Whereas the anime, I think, kind of glosses over it, and I could completely understand why, because nothing really happens.
I didn't really notice until, like, I got the Kakashi giving his little, like, I'm proud of you guys moment, because I was like, but what are you, there was no struggle. Like, it's, congratulations, you guys crossed the street. Woo! Like, what? It didn't work.
Sakura's like, I don't want to do this, but then they go to the exam site anyway, and then I guess Sasuke sees through the illusion. And what kind of confused me with this scene was that Sasuke had kind of called out the illusion, and then he looks to Sakura and is like, yeah, you probably saw it first, because you're the best at seeing through deception.
And she's like, yeah, I totally, like, that's the thing, so did she? Kind of it's not, exactly, yeah.
It seems to be implied that she didn't, which I do think that's kind of interesting in how, at the beginning of the chapter, or maybe it was a couple chapters before, but Sasuke kind of called her out on her shortcomings, that she was the weakest in the group. Mm-hmm. But then he sees that she's, like, there is a little moment where he looks over and notices that Sakura's acting weird, and so he does kind of have that concern, and in a way he kind of tries to redeem what he said before, like he tries to help her out, like with this scene where he's like, yeah, I'm sure you saw it first, like to boost her confidence. But the way that scene kind of implies that she didn't actually see through it until he points it out, kind of undercuts that she actually is the
there's
best
no indication,
in that
like there's
ability.
no, like, I went back and checked and saw if there was like a little panel of Sakura, like with like an exclamation point above her head, or just something that would imply that she thought something was off, but there wasn't anything. It was like the first mention of the illusion, aside from the little conflict being taken place with the two Chunin there. Like, the only, indication was just, it was Sasuke saying, yep, there's an illusion door, Sakura, you definitely noticed, right? And she's like, yeah? It's not really clear if she noticed before Sasuke or at the same time or anything like that would lend more credence to Sasuke's praise of her, something like that.
It's a good way to show that Sasuke's not completely apathetic towards her, but at the same time, most of their interactions throughout this arc are not very, you wouldn't consider them really close friends. Like, they're teammates, but, like, there isn't really that, like, we know that Sakura's head over heels for Sasuke, but Sasuke just kind of seems to put up with her, and that's about the extent of it. And, that's, like, my biggest issue with trying to get invested in their relationship, is that it's completely one-sided.
Oh,
yet
yeah,
somehow...
I only just remembered that they actually end up together, and it's like, what?
Yeah, so, this little moment is one little tiny bit of build-up to that they could maybe be together one day, but, like, I haven't felt enough of that yet. You gotta
stretch it really far. You gotta stretch it really far, in my opinion. Like, I didn't get that sense at all.
But if that's what Kishimoto was going for, I can give him credit that he had a good little moment here. Interestingly enough, there was another scene, it was a filler scene in the anime, I realized, because it didn't exist here, where before they actually like make it to that scene where there's the illusion gate, there's that scene where Iruka is talking to Kakashi, and all the Jonin and the Hokage, and he's like, they're not ready to take this exam.
That had been the manga, though.
Well, no, that's part of the manga.
Oh, yeah.
But then there's a scene...
sorry.
There's a scene between that and them arriving at this gate where Iruka kind of tests them. Like, he goes out and I guess puts them through these trials, or, like, not real trials, like it's a one-off thing where... I don't know, but, like, at least...
He wants to check and make sure.
But like, what it does...
Against Kakashi's will, I guess, or...
What that filler scene does do, like, one thing, I think it adds a bit more to Iruka's character, that he actually goes out and does something, and he's proven wrong, like, he actually gets to see... Like, he'll see it later in the exam after the forest of death.
That kind of happens in the stuff I've read, because, when he sees them gets at the forest of death, he's like, oh shit, you guys, Kakashi was right. You guys really are cool and tough. And so he gets that. But okay.
But then the other thing that it does do, if you want to have this kind of depression arc with Sakura, there's a moment there where she actually looks a bit impressive. Like, she sees through the illusion that he puts up for her. So, like, if you wanted to have a moment where Sakura's feeling depressed, but then she has a way to get her confidence back, like, not just through Sasuke saying, oh, you saw that, right? It's actually like a physical example of Sakura doing something somewhat impressive. that would actually, like, I'm not saying that you don't need to have the Sasuke moment, the compliment there, but it would give a little more substance, like, if you wanted to actually have this depression story, like, drag it out a little bit to actually make it feel like she actually feels it.
And yeah, give the audience time to actually register that she's feeling the emotions, because again, I didn't even really notice it. It's just so small. Like, it's like you can see what the priorities are, and immediately after it, like, we get the moment of Naruto busting into the exam and being like, I'm gonna be the Hokage, and yeah, so it's just like, and that had more impact because, you know, it's Naruto being loud and taking everyone's notice in, but Sakura being quiet and in her own head isn't really, like, yeah, he doesn't do a lot to sort of, like, let us because there's so much else going on with like the other characters, and he can't focus on this, or doesn't focus on this enough. So yeah. But
then they actually get into the exam, and that's when things really start to get interesting, because it's all these characters. Of course, in the anime, like I said before,
yes,
you get the way early introduction to these characters. It's not much, but you at least kind of get to see what they are. But here they just all kind of show up. And there's like, oh, hey, you're our classmates who we've always known. I'm not saying that I can't believe that, because we didn't get a whole lot of insight into
the school
Naruto's school life. But I don't know. I'm not really complaining about it, I guess. But just the way that I will say that Kishimoto, though he is introducing a ton of characters here, and maybe I'm biased because I've already seen the story and I'm already invested in these characters, so that could be it. But I think he does a decent job of, like, introducing them all. Like, you very quickly get an idea of who these characters are.
Well, I first kind of felt like, because what I noticed is that, like, yeah, they do, like, little things here, but then, like, for Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji, like, they do a sort of, like, a slightly more in-depth one later, like, when they went during the Forest of Death, like, he sort of, like, spaces some of it out a bit, so, like, because I don't, like, yeah, there was a little, like, we get, like, little bits of them here, and they're even, like, some of their abilities, but, like, we get a more detailed explanation of these three later, like, he sort of holds it off, you know, and then, like the focus here especially is on, like, Lee, you know, who's, like, Lee is great, but,
like, even in this scene, even though we've only just been introduced to these characters, I do get the feeling that they truly are, like, a class, like, they are a group of people who know each other, who have those sort of connections, and so, like, when they're juxtaposed against the entire crowd, like, it does feel like they're all the rookies. They're kind of the outcasts in this situation. They're the ones that everyone is looking to break down.
Yeah. And then they have their old, like, rivalries and stuff, and then there's new ones with, I guess the big, so far, themes of, like, the Chunin Exams, or at least, like, that they're building into is, like, the talent versus ingenious versus hard work kind of thing.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about later with the fights and stuff, because, like, they're setting that up pretty early with the rivalry between Sasuke and Lee, because, again, you got Sasuke the genius and Lee the hard worker, you know, so they have their fights and their little fight and stuff. Oh yeah, well, one thing I thought was weird was, because Lee is, like, he's immediately in love with Sakura. More in love with Sakura than Naruto ever really seemed to be, too, for that matter.
Yeah, because immediately Lee is like, I'll protect you with my life, and Naruto never really did anything like that.
Yeah, and, but also Sakura's, like, grossed out, and I'm just like, ew, she's like, ew, affection, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you seen how much you drool over Sasuke? Like, what a hypocrite.
How to make Sakura an even more unlikable character.
Yeah, well, why not?
Make her hate this guy for his looks and the way he acts.
A real woman would love Lee. No, that's silly. But yeah,
this is not helping my case with Sakura at all. She's making fun of my boy Rock Lee. Not off to a great start in this arc. Sakura, please stop.
Oh man, I did like how when Guy comes in and, like, he's, like, crying and Lee and with Lee and hugging, and, like, they're such genuine dorks. Like, because Naruto's, you know, he's, you know, he acts out and he's, like, a prankster and stuff, but these guys are completely serious about their dorkiness. So it's a little refreshing. Like, we haven't seen a character of this type quite yet in the series. Yeah. So I found that really amusing when they showed up. And
with how serious the tone of this arc is, for the most part, Lee is a very, very welcome introduction. Like, him and Guy bringing more levity to the story, I think, is a very good move, a very important move to make.
Yeah.
I will just say that I know, while we're on the topic of Rock Lee, we had talked about this before in the chat, but how, like, when the fights start, how kind of some of Kishimoto's panel layouts are a little confusing. Like, I know there's this one part that kind of confused me. Where
I'll try and put it on the screen, but
Naruto goes to like kick Lee. Like he's already like had an attack blocked, so I'm already like a little thrown off. The camera angle's kind of weird, but he tries to kick Lee in the face, it looks like. And I think Lee ducks it, but it's kind of hard to follow like, what's moving away.
The part that's solid is like the start point, and then it blurs to show where he moves, when I feel like it would be the opposite to show how he's moving away. But, or maybe I was completely misreading what's happening and his legs are moving too. And then the next one, the other one that you showed was like Naruto's like completely blocked by a sound effect, so it's even harder to tell what's going on because of the release we read. Like maybe if we saw it in the original Japanese, the sound effect might be less obtrusive, maybe, or something. But even then, it's like I'm not sure, because I mean the flow of the fight is definitely a little weak, but like the moment with Lee, where Lee kicks Sasuke, really that impact was really sold, and I was like, whoa, shit, Sasuke just got the shit kicked out of him. That was a good. So it's like he's good in some ways, but he's not as good in others. Though I do think later on, Lee versus Gaara was where I was really paying attention to it. The flow is definitely better. Like I didn't feel lost reading it.
No, not at all. No, not at all. That was much better.
Yeah, but I mean, he was talking in like the volume inserts and stuff how he. How the manga schedule is hard, so if he has time, he does try to redo some of the panel flow and stuff like that. So maybe he just didn't have enough time to like tighten up this action. Like maybe he wasn't thinking about the action so much. Like he just sort of like maybe it was more of like an editor's suggestion, or he just realized, oh shit, I should do this thing, and so he didn't have enough time to focus on it, tighten it up to make it flow better. So I don't know. There's the end, whatever the reason, the end result wasn't as strong as he's been able to do. Like, I don't think I had much problem following earlier stuff, but earlier stuff, like, this is the first big showing of taijutsu we've seen, so it's also possible that it just wasn't quite, he hadn't quite practiced drawing this style of, fighting in the series yet. So, there's a few reasons.
On the topic of the introduction to taijutsu, I know I mentioned this to you as well, how when Lee is like breaking Sasuke's guard, like dodging it, my assumption is that like he's just super quick and he can like make a move while Sasuke can't even see it. But then like he does this weird hand sign right before he kicks him. So it makes it look like it's some sort of technique, even though we find out later that Lee doesn't know ninjutsu or genjutsu.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, one possibility is that he was doing it to, like, fake Sasuke out to make it look like he was doing a hand sign when he wasn't. Just to kind of... That's not Lee's personality. That's not the type of thing he would do. So, though, the other point to note is because Lee and his, condition, like, probably, especially back in the day before there was, like a lot of, like there were multiple translations going around. Like, people weren't sure whether Lee was just not good at genjutsu or ninjutsu, or just literally couldn't use them at all. And then other people thought that maybe because, like, he had it, like, because he couldn't do them, like, he was just naturally better at taijutsu, which is not the case. He's just, because he doesn't do them, he spends all his time on taijutsu. Like, he's not a genius of taijutsu, he's a genius of hard work. Like, he's just put more hard work into taijutsu than anyone else his age. Like, he's not naturally better at it, so like there's just been a lot of confusion around Lee's abilities and stuff, and that hand sign did not help at all. That was a really weird, I don't think I noticed it until you pointed it out to me, but it was really weird and out of place when considering what we learn about Lee later, because maybe he just didn't have everything about Lee like sort of like laid out before when he did that little moment, because or maybe he did and he just fucked up. I don't know, maybe.
But I know, like you had talked about, maybe if he did it as like a fake out, like even though that's not part of his personality, let's say that that's what he was doing. But then later on in that fight, he talks about how he's moving so fast that Sasuke can see his movements, but Sasuke can't keep up with his speed, which almost makes it completely superfluous that he would even make the sign in the first place, because if Sasuke can't
maybe he was overrating Sasuke, moves. Maybe he was expecting more out of Sasuke and treating him like he would, but he was definitely fooling around because he had his weights on, so the guy specifically told him that not to take off his weights unless he was protecting someone, even though later in the arc when he's protecting someone he doesn't take off his weights.
Yeah, it's weird because it seems like there are 3 different techniques that Lee is not supposed to use until there's a special condition. One being the technique he tried to use against Sasuke, the very first leaf
that's right. The one guy stopped him for. Yeah, the one guy stopped. You're right. I forgot about that one. And then the weights and the gates. Yeah,
and the gates. So it's like, I don't know if maybe Kishimoto hadn't thought of the 8 gates by that point, possibly. Because it just seems like, oh, there's this technique you can't use, but there's also this technique that you can't use, but there's also this technique that you can't use. So which is
distraction. If Lee says he's going to use that, no one knows what he means because there's 3 different that's. So yeah, just that he's subverting that shonen cliche of them going to use that. So
this is the early introduction of that jutsu that everyone always gets so freaked out over because we'll know that that'll happen over and over and over again in this series as new techniques get introduced, and I guess this was the introduction of
He's going to use that! Oh no! Yeah. Shonen cliches, gotta love them. You gotta love them. So yeah, I can't think of anything else about the fight that took my notice.
I will just say, I know this isn't really analytical, but watching Sasuke get his ass kicked by Rock Lee...
Okay, I gotta agree with you there.
Great moment. Like, I don't really hate Sasuke's character, but still, nice to see.
It's great going into the arc because, like, before this, you have, like, all this build-up to Sasuke, and he's, like, he's the genius, he's the top of the class, he's the best. But then, the first thing that happens is he's using the Sharingan, he's not, like, weakened at all from prior fighting, like, there's no excuse. Rock Lee beats the shit out of him. Like, there's no, cutting around that. That's what happens. So it's like, it's good going into the arc because, like, okay, if this guy beats Sasuke, and then Lee, he's like, well, I'm only the second strongest person on my team. So there's someone else who's higher than him. And then we were also introduced to Gaara before. And then as the arc goes, we see even more of Gaara, and he's just, like, terrifying. So it's like, there's several guys who Sasuke should be fucking worried about, And it's just, it's a really good way to start the arc because, again, like, after they did all that Zabuza stuff, they immediately showed that, like, yeah, even though they were in that type of situation, like, they still have ways to go, especially in regards to their peers, even, I guess. So, yeah, I guess I should have thought about that earlier. Huh. But I'm trying to remember anything else about because, yeah, they do introduce all the characters. Hinata is fucking adorable. Like, no wonder everyone loves her. And, she wins the Naruto, so, more power to her.
She wins the Naruto.
Yes.
One thing I will say on the topic of character designs, I absolutely love Kiba's design. How he's got like the jacket, and at first, like when I first saw him, I thought like that was his hair. So like when we later find out that he has like short hair, I was like, oh, so that was but it's just the jacket.
The fuzzy. That's great.
Like.
Oh yeah, and another moment about those, like, character introductions and stuff. There was a weird joke with Choji's like, man, I bet that dog would taste great with hot sauce, and I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
Like, cause he's like, maybe, like, I mean, of all the characters, Choji's probably the weakest one, because his personality is that he's fat, but he doesn't like being called fat. Like, that's, like, the entire character I got out of him, of these chapters we read. Like,
yeah, and, like, he gets no love in the Chunin exams. He does nothing. Yeah. Like, even in, like, he's the final fight in the exams, in the preliminaries, and it's after Gaara versus Rock Lee. There's nothing you can do after that. He just gets blown aside for comedy. No. And, like, I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of his character, but I feel like he deserved better than that. Like, even if you're gonna write him off that quickly, I mean,
pretty much the only reason, like, for the fight later, the only reason that happened was so that, like, there was some, like, anticipation with, like, who's gonna fight who. Like, because if he fought the dude first, then the last fight is Rock Lee versus Gaara, and then you just kind of, like, but you expect it. Like, both the characters know about it, so you don't get that, like,
like
build
that,
it, like,
that moment
instead
of,
it's just like boom, it's happening.
Psychology. Like I don't want to fight next. I might as well go last so that I can actually be next. I don't know. I feel like it still would have been fine if it was the end. You wouldn't have had the anticipation, but even still, like, with how much, like, I don't know. I guess if anybody had to be the cool down fight after the big climax, it would have to be Choji, because what are you gonna do? Put Ino and Sakura there? That just wouldn't work. Like, Kishimoto actually pretended to take that fight seriously. It just wouldn't have worked if it was after that huge fight. But okay, I'm getting way ahead of the
we're getting way ahead. But yeah, my point was that, like, because, like, yeah, like, during the Forest of Death, he's like, don't call me fat, even though, like, I literally have a shirt that says food on it. Like, his shirt says food. What do you expect, bro? Like, I'm sorry. You're fighting technique literally involves you getting bigger. Like, there's only so many parts of your character that we could actually talk about, and they all revolve around food. What are you gonna do? You have, like, you're gonna get mad, like, damn it, Choji. So yeah, like, I don't remember a lot of his character from later, but from this part, it's like, Choji, come on, please. Oh yeah, and then Kabuto got introduced.
Yeah, Kabuto's introduction was pretty cool. He just seems like this nerdy guy who's got all the knowledge. He's if you want to talk about Hunter x Hunter parallels, he is the Tompa of the Chunin Exams.
Oh my god, you're right. Oh, I didn't.
Of course, his character takes a completely different turn than Tompa's does.
Yes,
but as far as like what he serves.
They're both knowledgeable dropouts who are mostly gathering information, I guess. Though for Tompa, it's so he can be a dick, and for Kabuto, it's because he's Orochimaru's sidekick.
Gathering intel.
Though I guess he's also a deep agent, like, because he's they have him on record as failing. Like, there was people who recognized him, so he's been in Konoha for a while, I guess. So,
I thought it was kind of interesting.
I think it was Unko or someone recognized him from a prior Chunin exam.
Well,
so he's been there at least 2 years. Like he didn't just possibly since the academy. Like I don't know. Maybe they go into his backstory later. I totally don't remember.
I thought they had said something like he had taken, like this was his 8th time in a row or something, like he had taken it 4 years in a row. But it's clearly established, unlike with that, like, test with Naruto at the beginning to graduate his school, like, this one is clearly established it happens twice a year, and it's every year. So, like, he had not passed, but he had taken it, like, 7 or 8 times. I think was what they said, so that was like 4 years or something to that effect.
You're right. Yeah.
But
which sets him at about like 17, 18, I'd say, or 16, 17, I'd say. I mean, assuming he's been taking them since early on. Like, I mean, the getting going into the Chunin exams so early is pretty rare, even though all 3, teams from the... I mean, I guess that goes back to what I was thinking about, like, with the exam, or the graduation from the academy earlier, where, like, if there's 4 ninja teams that are good enough to be ninjas, then why only accept 3? Because these 3 are obviously exceptional. Like, what about the other teams that might have been accepted had these guys not been so good? Like maybe they would have taken the Chunin exams later, but they weren't. That doesn't make them bad. Just little detail that, I mean, there's already plenty of characters as it is. I'm not asking for more characters. I'm just, eyeing previous stuff with suspicion, I guess.
Oh, before we get too far away, I'm looking at my notes here. Going back to that scene where Rock Lee and them pretend to be weaklings, but then Rock Lee steps in to block Sasuke's kick and the other guy. There was this one line of dialogue where Sasuke was like, "He stopped my kick. No human alive can do that."
Oh god, Sasuke.
That might have just been like the translation, but still, I just thought it was...
I mean, I could definitely see him being suspicious of a Genin being able to block that kick, but
no human alive can stop my kick.
I think maybe the implication was that it had to do with no human could do that without chakra or something like that, but that's like, or jutsu, like he didn't think
or no normal person could stop that kick.
Because from his perspective, Lee stopped it with just his bare body, and which he did, but that's because he's a taijutsu expert, beyond what Sasuke would have seen from before, I guess. So, but even then, he has experience with like Zabuza, so it's kind of hard to say for sure what he would expect from another ninja or another human, even. So that was definitely a weird translation from the sounds of it.
I do like the parallel that is established between Rock Lee and Naruto in that scene where Guy shows up, and then obviously he's got the tape like off his hands and he's wrapping it back up. Yes, and Naruto sees his bruised up knuckles or whatever.
I wrote a note on that, but I forgot what it was about until you reminded me. Yeah, because it's like Sasuke is so bitter about getting beaten by Lee, but Naruto recognizes, because at this point in the story, Naruto is also a hard worker, even though that is called into question with knowledge from later. But from what we know from reading the 87 chapters, Naruto's a hard worker, so he's more easily able to recognize Lee's efforts,
and he doesn't. He completely shits on Sasuke. He's like, hey, it's because he works harder than you. You can't just get by on your bloodline. And I do like that interaction, and on the same level that I like Sasuke telling Naruto to get better than him. It's a nice little way of not putting up with Sasuke's too cool for school thing that everybody gives him.
Yep. Okay, I think we're finally into the actual exam, with the first test, which is the cheating exam.
This phase of the exam is so fucking cool.
Yeah, this is a good way to sort of establish everyone's abilities. Like, and because the method is to have them use abilities but not be seen, like, so we're able to see, like, Gaara is able to manipulate sand, but none of the other characters see that, because that's the point. He's not supposed to let the other characters see what he's doing, you know? And then, like, so we as the audience are able to see what these characters do without the other characters knowing what they do. So it's a good blend of, you know, setting up things, but again, without, like, why didn't the character do this? He knows what that character can do, but no, they don't, because, yeah.
The one bit where Ten, like, makes some sort of mirror with her, like, I guess it was a super thin string or whatever she was using, but that was maybe the one where I was like, how does no one see that?
Okay, and like, see the other thing, and because I guess she made the mirror, but it looked like there was just like a bunch of mirrors in like a circle on the roof, and she pulled one of them down. Like, it looked like that's just a fixture in the room, and I'm like, because that exact same thing bothered me too, because it's just like, why are there mirrors in the classroom for any reason? And then, then there was like some sort of like mental communication, like she's like, Lee, adjust your headband if you can see, and then he adjusts his headband. It's like, but how far are you guys away? Like, did she hear?
I guess my assumption was that, like, going into this, did they know what was coming? No, they didn't. They didn't realize that this was supposed to be a test thing, but is that supposed to just show that their chemistry is so great that they can, like, figure this stuff out? Like, maybe Lee saw her doing stuff, but it does make it kind of weird.
What were they sitting in a way where he could like there's so much like what's coincidence, like, or I don't want to say contrivance, but there's so many like little like details that need to go into these plans. Like, some of them are pretty clear. Like, again, with like Gaara's is pretty straightforward. You know, Ino's was a good example. I like Sasuke mimicking the pen movements. That's cool. You know. And stuff like that. That was
a really interesting way to distinguish the Sharingan from the Byakugan. Like, he was copying someone's movements, whereas Neji was just
looking through the body to see the answers. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
This whole phase of the exam is just the fact that there's no action involved. Like, there's no fighting or anything. I think that only makes, like, I know I'm a big fan of the Hunter exam, but I think one of the like, this phase in particular, I think, is arguably my favorite in the whole Chunin exams. Like, there's no action involved, okay. but just like it's very, like, the purpose it's supposed to serve is it's very clear, and it's got these layers to it that, like, the fact that the proctor is like this interrogator, he's like he's this elite ninja.
Oh god, when he takes off his fucking bandana and you see like there are literally holes screwed in his head, I'm like, ew. You're like, dude, that dude got hurt, man. And
but I just love the way it's built up, that there's all this, you know, you have the way like all the questions are laid out, and you have to figure out that you are supposed to cheat, and then you have to find a way to get answers. But even if you do that, you can still pass without answering a single question. It's like the exam serves multiple purposes. It is testing their ability to gather information. It's testing their resolve, because as he says at the end, if you dropped out here, then there's no point in becoming a Chunin. You don't deserve to become a Chunin.
Yeah. Though I will say, like, that the sort of backdoor that Naruto gets through also reveals a weakness of the test, in that Naruto gets through without answering a single question.
Yes.
Like, he has like no information gathering skills or knowledge, but he at least has to resolve. Like, I guess that's decided as the more important part of the test. Is the, you know, they've like, because I mean, you know, information gathering is important and all, but if you're not good at it, they'll just have you do something else.
But then also,
okay, I came up with the answer to my complaint as I was bitching about my complaint. Cool. Because it is more important. It's keeping knowledge is more important than getting knowledge. Like, they're both important, but I'd say like keeping your own secrets from getting out there is, you know, like, I mean, with the whole, you know, Anbu corpse destroyers, like the ninja, whatever Haku was pretending to be, you know, where they like, you know, Kakahaji's like, oh, if you autopsy a ninja's corpse, you can get a lot of information about that village. So they make sure that the corpses get, you know, destroyed and stuff. Like, you know, information is important. Keeping information is, you know, very important. So, yeah. Okay.
But that's this guy's specialty. Like he interrogates people, so he knows how to fuck with their mind. And I think the biggest takeaway for me from this exam was just the testing of resolve, because you have so many restrictions that could, like, you have to worry about not just yourself, but you have to worry about your teammates, because if you get caught and you fail, then your teammates are done. So there's all this pressure put on you. Like, this guy, he's a professional. Like, he does stuff like this. He messes with people to get information. So, like, these are just kids, but they're going through, like, they've got all this super stress placed
these mental gymnastics and
then just the way that the 10th question is laid out, where it's like the whole build up to the 10th question is that, there's all these rules and restrictions. Like, the 10th question doesn't matter. It's just the building up to it. It's all this pressure of, like, what could happen, and it's just all that potential stress that, like, you've got to fight through in order to actually
like,
pass.
I mean, I guess, like, the part of the messing thing is, like, oh, if you fail this, or if you fail to answer the 10th question, you'll never be a Chunin. You're going to be stuck as a Genin forever. Like, I mean, that's more of the mental stuff. But at the same time, is being stuck as a Genin really that bad a thing? I mean, does Naruto ever become a Chunin?
I don't think Naruto ever becomes a Chunin.
Exactly. So he fights in the war and saves the world as a Genin, and being stuck as a Genin forever is supposed to be like a threat.
But at this stage in the story, we don't know that yet.
Yeah, I know, cool. But it's like that. But yeah, I know that's true. But I did think about that, and I was like, But
it's like the idea,
like retroactively, it doesn't work as well. But even then, it's like, I mean, well, then even before this moment, you do have like Kakashi saying like, well, you're a Genin, you're doing grunt work, but you're still considered a ninja, and then like Naruto did do an A rank mission, they went into it as a C rank mission, but they still as a Genin did an A rank mission even before this point in the story. So it's like if they have the skills, like, I don't see why, even at this point in the story, I think you can make an argument that if they have the skills, I don't see why they couldn't do any mission as a Genin, as long as they prove that they had the skills by doing other missions, But it was just the threat of the idea. Like, there was nothing behind it. Like, they wouldn't actually be restricted. So, like, the idea is, like, do you risk throwing your own future away so your teammates get a chance to pass, or do you drop out and drag your teammates down with you for the chance to have a safer scenario in the future? Which was that was the whole idea behind it, was that if you take that easier path, there is no easier path if you're a Chunin. I don't know. I just like this test. It's cool. I like it. I like all the mind fuckery. It's great. And there was the moment that was like Sakura was about to like drop them out for Naruto's sake, but then Naruto said like "fuck you," which was kind of like you were mentioning the mind games and stuff earlier. It's like a bit of a prisoner's dilemma, except it's not in that the prisoners quote unquote can speak to each other. You know what I'm actually talking about, right? I just realized I play a lot of like visual novels and stuff, so this kind of shit comes up. But when I say prisoners, well, then again, someone in the audience might not know, but it's so common. I'm like, do I want to be pretentious and just assume everyone knows what it is, or should I fuck it? Yeah, the prisoner's dilemma is like, they have two, the idea is two prisoners are captured, and they ask them both like, okay, if you release the other one, or if you wail on the other one and, say that they're the bad guy, then you'll get off free. But if both of you, like, turn on each other, then you both go in for even longer. Like, it's sort of a mind game around, like, will the other person, betray me? So it's like, do you stay silent or do you betray them? And, that's kind of what happened with Sakura and Naruto here, except again, because the prisoners were able to communicate with each other, and Naruto did his bit where he like yelled out like, no, I'm not going to give up no matter what. Like, he's about to raise his hand, but then he slams it down and it's like, no, fuck you. So, yeah, that was a little moment, but, did any of that make sense at all? No, I get where you're coming from. So, like, they're not isolated, so they're not really being tested in that sense, but that element still is kind of there. Like, you have Sakura potentially throwing it away. Like, she thinks she's helping Naruto, like, she wants to preserve his dream, but, like, if she had dropped out there, then she would have cost everybody, and they would have been done. They would have had to wait till the next arc's
exam.
over. Arc's over, and then, like, the rest of the arc just happens anyway, and we're so confused, like, why is the village suddenly get invaded? No, that would...
But I talked about Sasuke caring about Sakura a tiny bit earlier. This is another good moment where a little bit of redemption for Sakura. Like, she actually does care about Naruto's dream. She's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of stupid, but at the same time, I don't want to see that stupid dream crushed yet. and it's a good,
yeah,
it's a good
I want to
moment
crush
for
it
her.
myself. No. But yeah, that was, I actually forgot about that a little bit. But, oh yeah, and I guess following up an earlier point is, like, again, with what I was mentioning early on, but last time with, all the adult ninjas are supposed to dislike Naruto, but we don't actually see anyone dislike Naruto. And here's another example where Ibiki is the name of the Jonin with the holes in his head. He, like, sees that Naruto had no answers, and he's like, man, what an intriguing young man. Like, as if he's never heard of Naruto. Like, that's the real weird thing now I think about it. Is, like, he should, like, I feel like everyone should know about Naruto. He's got a monster in his belly that could break out and kill the village as far as they know. Shouldn't he know about Naruto? Like,
you would think, especially, like, these super elite ninja, like, you'd think that kind of intel would be passed around through, like, that
and he's the intel guy. He should know everything.
Yeah, or maybe he does know, but
or maybe he's just away from the village so long. He's just no one told him.
Or maybe the idea is that like the common people don't like Naruto, and like the people who actually kind of know what happened are not as. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Let's not touch it in with a
let's leave it there.
On second thought. Let's stay away from this because we did discuss it a bit last time. So, but anyway, so I think. Do you have anything else to say on your favorite part of the exam? Because I do like it, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite part.
I mean, like I think as a whole, as a complete a complete phase, I think I like it. Although there are other moments later in the arc that stand out far more than this.
Yes, okay, that's definitely fair.
But I think, like, as a concept,
yeah, it's also pretty concise. Like, it's only, like, what, like, 4 or 5 chapters? Maybe, yeah. Oh, yeah, one moment I did like about it that I forgot to mention is I love how, like, Naruto first goes into the exam hall and he's like, I'm the best, I'm gonna be the Hokage. And then, like, it's a paper test and he's, like, depressed. Like, he's quiet and, like, oh no, like it's just a funny like flop around because it's just like boom, he just loses all of his confidence at having to do a written test with like really hard questions on purpose. And I guess there was like the little moment with like hit between him and Hinata, but at the same time it went on for so long. I mean they were noticed, but like they were talking, kind of whispering to each other, and sound travels, so it's just like they were talking for so long that it kind of like I was like, I feel like Naruto did eventually realize what they were doing and how he was fucking up, but it was a little weird. Like, how much noise was going around in the room? Like, just lots of scratching on pens, but so would the whispering have been detected, like, by them? Like, would they have realized how much noise they were making? Like, I don't know.
Is it because it's one conversation that it only counts as 1 point against you? So if somebody gives you all the answers and one chance to cheat, like, is that fine? As long as you don't get caught?
Minus 2 points, but plus 9 because you got all the answers, so whatever. Yeah. Worth it.
Or maybe they were testing, maybe they knew that he hadn't cheated yet, and that they were just waiting.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, because you had to lose, because it's one deduction is minus 2 points, so if your team got a collected minus 5 deductions, which would be minus 10 points, so you'd all, like, there'd be no chance of passing, so that's when they kicked you out, I guess. So, yeah, if Naruto only, like, talked for a bit, then he might have only gotten, like, 2 or 3 at most, if not just 1, so...
I also
really that moment was... Yeah.
As far as like building up the threat of this test goes, early on when Sakura's like, okay, well, even if Naruto can't pass, like Sasuke and I can get points to save us, and then it like cuts to Sasuke and he's like, I don't know the answer to any of these questions. It's just like, oh shit, this is real now. Even
Which I guess also folds into Sakura's like pride or praise of Sasuke. Like, she's like, oh, Sasuke's got this, and it cuts to Sasuke and he's like, I don't got this. Like, yeah.
But then it also kind of, it hypes up that aspect of Sakura and that she's smarter than them, like, maybe not in like a practical sense, like applying it, but like as far as like book smarts go, she's that's a better example of showing that she has skills that the others don't, compared to the illusion door thing they were complaining about earlier, where Sasuke's like, yeah, you noticed the door, didn't you, Sakura? And she's like, yes, like, yeah, that didn't work, as we discussed. But this was a better example. I like how there's multiple ways that you could potentially pass this too. Like, I know it ultimately comes down to the 10th question, but like you see Sakura's intelligence. He's actually able to answer the questions. You see all the people cheating to get their information. Then you, of course, have the test of resolve. People who, even though
right. Well, like, I mean, because yeah, the cheating part, like, and getting the answers is part of the exam. Like Naruto, I guess Naruto's probably the only one who didn't, like, because he didn't cheat, but he also didn't have the answers, but he also just sort of like stuck, like, he just had that trust in his teammates, and, you know, that 10th question that he was able to sort of stick through it. Well, everyone else who didn't have answers or wasn't able to cheat, probably, you know, they failed to cheat, like, and got kicked out, or they were successful in cheating. Yeah, so yeah, that would, because he seemed to be the only one to have, like, no answers on his tests, so.
Yeah.
And because there's no way that he was the only one, like, who didn't know anything, because they were supposed to be hard questions, you know, so there must have been other ninjas there who didn't have any idea what was going on.
But then most of them either got caught cheating, or they dropped out before the 10th question because it was too stressful.
Yes, right, so yeah, that was cool. But,
And then Unko gets her big introduction, completely cutting the guy off and just barreling into the room. And I did kind of like the parallel where Sakura's like, she's just like Naruto.
Right. And then we're on to the next arc, the Forest of Death, which is probably one of my favorite, like arcs in the series to a degree. Like, there's a lot of cool bits here, because like, again, Hunter x Hunter comparison, but I feel like this one was probably, if I had to make a direct comparison between the Chunin Exams and Hunter Exams, the Forest of Death is probably the most similar to the badges in the Hunter x Hunter, when they had, they had to get the badge from the certain other applicant, and then especially because there's one moment in the Chunin Exams where when Orochimaru is attacking them and Sasuke's like, oh, you want our scroll, right? Like, that reminded me a lot of when Kurapika was, when Hisoka came in and he was, encountered him and Leorio, and Kurapika, like, sort of, like, juggling, like, the badge thing was a bit more complex than the scrolls, because the scrolls are pretty straightforward. There's 2 scrolls, you need both of them. But with the badges, like, okay, you have yours, that's worth 3 points, so you either need, you need 3 other badges, or you need the one that you're specifically assigned to get, which is also worth 3 points. So it's like, and Kurapika was sort of like, okay, well, we're not giving up these badges, but you could take these badges, and Hisoka, complied, and so it was a bit more complex of a situation, but at the same time, Orochimaru didn't care about the scrolls because he destroyed one.
What I liked about that, as far as in the context of the challenge itself, not necessarily the narrative, because I do think both serve a good purpose, but as far as the game itself, I liked how in that moment they, like, Kurapika could give up a badge because they didn't need it. It was an extra. But in the Chunin Exams, you never really have a moment where a team has an extra scroll that they can gamble. Like with Sasuke,
there's not a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, if Sasuke gambles, like if he throws away his scroll, then they have to get 2. They have nothing, and that's important for the moment because Sasuke is throwing everything away just to survive.
Yeah, which is why Naruto's like, "What the fuck, man?" Which is a good moment. Like, well, especially because like you have this sort of like I'm trying to think of a good a game of catch between them with the coward thing, like you had before when Sasuke calls Naruto a coward, and then Then there was the moment here where you got that, and then Naruto stops Snake, and he calls Sasuke a coward,
Yeah.
And then, which of course, and then there's like the little flashback of Itachi calling Sasuke a coward. So it's like, this whole thing also now ties back to Sasuke's backstory. So that was kind of neat.
I also like the little intertwined bit where they talk about like the password, or not the password, but to basically figure out who's the fake. And Naruto's like, well, you're a fake Sasuke. And Sasuke's like, what are you talking about? I'm the real Sasuke. And Naruto's like, well, Sasuke's not a coward. And that moment really hits you. It's like, oh, that's right, Sasuke.
Yeah.
Buck up, be a man.
And, oh, by the way, another part about that moment that reminded me about Hunter x Hunter, like, back to the Sasuke Killua comparison, like, there was a bit here, because with Sasuke, like, he's clearly fucking terrified of Orochimaru, because I gotta say, I love the way Orochimaru was introduced, because he has such presence, like, the way his face, like, sort of, like, gets destroyed over the course of the fight, and has, like, because it's his fake face, and then, like, when he first comes in and he does the illusion on Sakura and Sasuke, and Sakura is, like, wrecked, she is on her knees, she is crying, she is distraught, like, this is, like, it just goes from, like, 0 to 11, or it was already, like, they're in the Forest of Death, so it's already, like, a 6 or 7, then it just goes to fucking 11, and it's like, holy shit, what's going on?
It's a really interesting tone shift out of nowhere, because, like, you have the whole part with, like, distinguishing Naruto, which you could say is, like, it's a little contrived that it happened back to back like that, but, like, in the very first spot, you have the one guy show up by himself, and he gets completely wrecked, because, but they figure out that it's not really Naruto. But then when Orochimaru shows up and it's like, oh, so you're not the real Naruto. Well, we're gonna take this guy out too. And it's like, nope, you're not taking this guy out. Good luck.
Nope. Oh man. Oh god. But what else was it about? Or what I was gonna say about the comparison was you have like Killua had the moment with his older brother, or no, it was in the Chimera Ant arc where his older brother had the needle in his head and he was like, or he just had his general little arc of being like when he's outmatched, he goes completely like he like a deer in the headlights. He just has to run, or he can't do anything, kind of. And that reminded me, Sasuke's reaction to that against Orochimaru felt kind of similar. Where again, Sasuke is just outmatched, so he's like thinking like, okay, how do we avoid the fight? You know, give Orochimaru a scroll. You know, like that kind of. It was so. It's a weird like. I don't even know if the Chimera Ant arc had been like if that moment in the Chimera Ant arc had even happened at that point.
No, but, I sincerely doubt it.
Relative to with this part of Naruto, like because Chimera Ant arc was stretched out a lot. Like it took 10 years for it to actually come out in the manga because of all the hiatuses. So I'd have to like look up that chapter, and then so even though like regardless of whether it was an inspiration accidental or not, like it's still a cool neat little parallel that I noticed because again I do have the feeling that Kishimoto likes Hunter x Hunter a lot, whether he knows it or not. But it was fine. It was transformative enough that it didn't like, oh, that's obviously a ripoff. Like it was, because it was just little character similarities. So, and again, like with the comparison to the badges and the scrolls, very different enough to not be, it's not like it's just straight up plagiarism. So, it was just, it's fine. But, God. And then, let's see, what else about Naruto. I like the callback when Naruto got out of the snake, because he was like, okay, how do I make this snake throw up? And he remembers back to when he was training with Sasuke, and they threw up from overeating, so he does the clones but instead of getting the snake to throw up, he, like, explodes the snake from inside, and it's super gory, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. Although, before we get too far away from that Hunter x Hunter thing, I believe in, around this time, because these chapters were being published, like, 2001-ish, at least going from what I've seen. This was around the time where Togashi was either in the York New arc, kind of wrapping that up, or depending if it was like later 2001, he was just kind of starting Greed Island. So Chimera Ant hadn't hadn't started that yet. But
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
I have kind of some interesting this next comment is both a bit of praise, and then I'm going to immediately undercut that because this reading this. So much more enjoyable than watching the anime because the anime drags everything out. Like the part with Naruto and the snake, I hated it because it was so slow. But here he gets captured,
it's like just a
and
few
then he's just okay, bam, I'm out. But then in saying that, I still think that reading this is it's kind of tedious the way that the fights are structured. Like especially this part with Orochimaru, I get it. You have to have your important character beats with Orochimaru performing the seal to restrain the nine-tailed fox chakra, and then you have to have Sasuke overcoming his fear. But at the same time, why are these fights one-on-one? It's 3-on-1. Why are they not fighting 3-on-1? They're not working together. Like I get the idea that Sasuke is scared, so he can't move, and that's how Naruto wakes him up. But I would have liked to see more creative fighting than just a one-on-one, more teamwork, but I can understand Sakura not doing anything because she was so shaken up by that initial illusion. And come on, she's like if Naruto and Sasuke are so outmatched, like how outmatched is Sakura? She's so far out of her depth here that it kind of makes sense for her not to fight. Like that I can accept, but again, Naruto and Sasuke, like they had better teamwork against Zabuza like before, and that was before their like bro moment with the training and stuff and fighting Haku. Like I agree, but it didn't bother me when reading it, but because I felt like their moments were like disconnected enough, like because Naruto kind of like he doesn't really fight Orochimaru for very long before he gets sealed up, and then he's out of the fight, So I will say that. Like, I know I could complain that, Sakura didn't do anything, like she never does. But here, it serves it's important that she does nothing because it really builds up Orochimaru. Like, all he had to do was have her foresee her death, and she's done. Like, even with Sasuke, he had to, like, stab himself to even break the illusion to actually do anything. Right, and even after he does that, he's still a wreck. So I would not expect Sakura to break out of that.
And it's also been established that Sakura has a weakness to that sort of thing, like with Kakashi in like the early chapters when he showed her the illusion of Sasuke getting hurt. Like that knocked her out. Like she was like foaming at the mouth, unconscious. Like,
but even then, like,
so if anything, she's gotten better at dealing with that. But even then, it's like,
but even then, like she can't. Even after she's like paralyzed with fear, she can't really do anything. She's still the one to stop, like to save Naruto so he doesn't fall out of the tree to probably his death or his like severe injury, whereas Sasuke doesn't move. And that's, I think, like the big wake up, like Sakura is doing something and she's worse off than Sasuke, and Sasuke's just being a big chicken. He's not doing anything. I'm showing no love to Sasuke.
One thing I just thought of that, because when we see when they're building up to the Orochimaru reveal, like there's like the 3 dead grass ninja that he replaced, and like the one that he replaced is wearing the same clothes, but that's like his like standard outfit, like that at least in my mind, with the big in the anime it's like the big purple like sash. But that's the clothes that the grass ninja was wearing. So did he just like?
Yeah, maybe he just liked the look.
Maybe because I don't think like later on when he shows up in the arc he's wearing different clothes. I think, but again, when I think of his normal look, I think of the one he first showed up in, which is like, but yeah, like maybe I guess he just like, I like your fashion style, I'm gonna kill you, and then he just sticks like that for the rest of my memory, at least beyond what I read recently. But so yeah, that was just a little tidbit. But other than that, like I do like later on when he fights Unko and he finally reveals his face, like something about Orochimaru, there's just so much presence with him in this arc, even though as I understand it, his power level gets completely blown out with. Like, he's like weaker than Itachi, who's weaker than Obito, who's weaker than blah, 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 but right here, right now, Orochimaru is fucking, like, oh god, the other moment that comes up, skipping ahead a little bit, when, he runs into Kakashi, like, he sneaks up, Kakashi's, like, using his Chidori, and, but then, like, Kakashi's clearly, like, there's, like, a little cut of, like, he gets a sense, like, if he attacks Orochimaru, he will die. Like, Orochimaru's, and Kakashi's like the strongest character we've really seen at this point, and Orochimaru is even above him. Like, he's just given a lot of like build up, and it works, and it makes him pretty intimidating, I'd say. Like, I had some reactions to like when he shows up behind Unko with his tongue out, and it's like creepy, and I'm like, ooh, fuck, it's Orochimaru. Like, I just think it's really well done.
Orochimaru is definitely my favorite villain in the series as a whole. Like, I guess that's part of the reason why I lost some interest in the series, is that
because he stopped being relevant after Sasuke killed him, I guess.
But then, but then they bring him back later. And
kind
it's like,
of,
why?
Yeah, that's right.
But like, why?
It's weird.
I don't like when people do this. Like Dragon Ball Super not even Super, but like Resurrection F brings back Frieza, and then they bring him back again in Super, and it's like he died. He died on Namek, or no, not Namek. He
Earth,
comes back,
but even then he died. He lost on Namek, and then he comes back again, and then he dies again, and then he comes back again, and then he dies again, and then he comes back again. Like,
what more can his character possibly serve to the narrative other than just that he's there and the fans like Orochimaru?
I mean, I will admit, like, I haven't been watching Super, but at least, like, him teaming up with Goku, that's different. Resurrection of F didn't need to happen, though. Like, what was the point? Like, I'm trying to remember, like, what significance did Resurrection of F matter? This is Dragon Ball's later. Never mind. Let's talk about Dragon Ball later. This is Naruto now. But I get your point. Is that like there's a point when you should stop bringing them back, I guess, and because it does undercut the tensions, or the like. If this character can come back to life, why can't this character come back to life? And and then it gets to the point where a character dies, and you just don't care because they're going to come back anyway, that's your fairy tale for you.
And then you run into the issues of like undercutting what made them good in the first place. Like if you have this major villain and he comes back and he's all like, and he's a lot tamer, then it's like, well, no, he was this ruthless asshole who just killed people and tried to possess young boys, and he's creepy. He's scary.
I mean, if there's a character moment attached to it, like if there's a clear change from their defeat, I mean, from what I remember of Orochimaru, it doesn't sound like that's happened. So we'll talk about that later. But for now, like I said, Orochimaru is pretty all right.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I'm trying to remember if there's anything else about the Orochimaru being there, because then he does his little fight with Unko, which, I don't know, having Unko being, connected to Orochimaru is it's a good way to deliver the, exposition around him, because she knows about Orochimaru, so she's able to explain that to the audience, where otherwise we'd be, completely lost. But even then, there's something appealing about being completely lost in some ways, if it's handled well enough, because again, Orochimaru is just so above the characters, and why is he here? What is he doing? And we know that now, but at the time, it's why is this really strong ninja pretending to be a young adult and infiltrating the Chunin Exams? He's basically just killing time, for the invasion, and scouting, talent like Sasuke, but in the moment, it's what the fuck's going on? And it's cool.
Yeah, I kind of don't get the idea that, where he's don't stop the Chunin Exams or else I'll attack the leaf, and it's but he's... Why continue the Chunin Exams? Because he ends he ends up doing it anyway. I'm sure there was some sort of reason for doing it, let's try not to.
Well, for the narrative reason, obviously, it's so we can still have the Chunin Exams.
Obviously, But and they know that Sasuke gets the curse mark, and I can understand them, they want to give Sasuke the benefit of the doubt. But as far as the exam as a whole goes, I feel like this should change everything. There's this guy who's out to kill people, he's out to maybe try to possess some of our students. Maybe we should try to, find a fix to this. I don't know how else. I just think it's a little...
there's the whole month in between the second and third phases. Well, there's the preliminaries, of course, but there's supposed to be a whole month in between, so was he preparing? Did he want the exams to continue so he could prepare for the invasion? But he said he would attack the leaf if it stopped. It just seems he's kind of on a. I'm trying to think of again, it's such a tenuous thing, because Orochimaru needs to invade when he needs to invade, but the Chunin Exams need to continue so the characters don't think something's up, but should it have affected more too?
Well, then this makes me think,
I'm trying to think of how you could write it better.
If there's a month break in between, then why does he even say don't stop the Chunin Exams? Because if there's a break anyway, and at that now I'm thinking what, because if he's gonna try to go after some of these students anyway, and there's this big month off between the next fights, why does it matter whether or not the Chunin Exams continue? Why does that take precedence?
If he's going to, if he wants to abduct Sasuke, then he can do it whenever he feels like. But he doesn't want to. As we we as the audience know, but the Leaf Village ninjas don't necessarily know.
I kind of feel like this line of dialogue could have been omitted entirely. And then when you have someone say later, oh, we should stop the Chunin Exams because Orochimaru's around, you could just say, well, no, what he's doing doesn't really influence that necessarily.
That's a good point, because if he was gonna if he was gonna capture Sasuke, he could do it at any time, so
because now we're just here talking about, well, what would the implications be of whether or not the Chunin Exams continue, when in reality it probably wouldn't have mattered at all.
Yeah, I guess, he wanted to, have them address it, but it's weird, so, But
as far as, I know...
Yeah, I think that's... what's up?
Well, I talked about this first fight being kind of tedious. I think it just... I like the Forest of Death. I'm not saying that I don't like it, but just the way a lot of the battles are structured. The next one that comes up where the sound ninja show up and they're going after everybody. That's also segmented off. As soon as one person goes down, someone else comes in for the save, and nobody ever works together.
Because the order, well, I think, it's because first Lee shows up, and if he really wanted to protect Sakura, he should have taken off his weights. Just saying. As we don't know about the weights yet as the audience, but at this point, but looking back, it's wait a minute. Shouldn't have you used that, Lee? You have 3 that's. Shouldn't this have been the time for 1 or 2 of them? But instead he gets wrecked. And, I can kind of understand Sakura not fighting, because again, her not doing anything is kind of expected at this point. So, but I will say, go on.
Well, because then she gets her moment. I guess I do like how, more specifically, this scene kind of lays out the dynamics of Ino's team, how it basically seems like she's the leader because you have Shikamaru looking to her like, well, what are we going or not? Like, and she,
he's the brains, but he's not the leader.
Yeah, but then later on, it kind of the same works with Kiba's team, where it's clear that he's the leader, but he's not really the star of the show. Like with Ino's team, it's obviously Shikamaru who's gonna get the big build up towards the end of the arc, and then with with Kiba you get Shino.
Kiba's team, it's Hinata.
As far as this exam goes, Shino's the one who passes, so he looks like the standout. I mean, obviously Hinata's the most relevant of the three.
She gets like the emotional moments with her fight against Neji, but we'll get into that later. Because before. Because they're, Shikamaru and Choji are just sort of like on the sidelines while the Sakura fights. Because that's probably my favorite Sakura moment is her fighting off the sound. Like, because even though she's like completely like outmatched, she still fights so hard. Anyway. Like my favorite, like I mostly like it. I like the anime version of the moment better. But when she's fighting the sound guy who doesn't have the bandages on his face, Zaku or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, and she's like, he throws a shuriken at her, but it's like, she used a substitution jutsu, and then he does it again, and then it's just another one, and he's like, okay, and then he does it a third time, and then he's like, okay, where are you coming at from this time, and then like, blood drips on his face, and Sakura like, fucking pounces on him, and it was so fucking cool in the anime. Not quite as cool in the manga, but like, I love that moment so much.
Yeah, it's just and then you have her just biting his arm, and he's like beating the crap out of her, but she's still like, she's not really doing a whole lot, but at the same time, she's like not giving up. Like she's scratching, like she's clawing and like fighting for her life. Like she's doing whatever she can to do anything, even if it doesn't amount to a whole lot. But she's like, she's fighting for her life. She actually like,
And for Naruto and Sasuke, because they're not able to protect her this time, so she's out of luck. And then Lee fails, so there's even more burden on her. So she just like goes all out, and she isn't able to match up to these guys. But goddamn, does she fucking try?
Now the massive like drama that is placed on her cutting her hair never really stuck with me. Like, okay,
because we get that big old flashback. Well. With her and Ino and the cast and like them talking about their hair because they're both into Sasuke.
I know it's a big symbolic moment. Like, her like growing out the long hair was all just like for appearances for Sasuke, but now she's going beyond that. But the way that all the characters are like, oh my god, she cut her hair! What do we do?
I mean, it kind of makes sense for Ino to be like that, but the others is like, they would, Choji and Shikamaru, they should have just like, oh, okay, that happened, But
more like the sound people, because like you get these shocked reaction panels, but you should be like, for them, it's like, okay, she cut her hair. Okay. Like maybe the girl holding her hair would be surprised, because obviously now she doesn't have anything to grip onto, but like,
right.
The way everyone's just like, oh my god, what did she just do?
It's like they know it's a big character moment, even though they shouldn't.
Yeah.
So
like I like it from a symbolic standpoint that she's like, letting go of her past and she's becoming her own ninja, but the way it's played out is super dramatic from everyone else is a bit much for my taste.
Right, yeah. But and then because after she, fails to beat the sound wait, hold on. I did have a note about Lee, because when he kicked the sound guy with the bandages, because I'm terrible at names, but like I noticed that because it's a very similar panel to the one of him kicking Sasuke before, but for some reason this one didn't have as much impact. Like I just remember feeling like it
pops up over and over again. Like when Sasuke uses it's there. When Rock Lee kicks Gaara, it's there as well. And I guess it just goes to show like that panel was super strong, so strong that he used it multiple times.
Yeah, so a little lazy of him, but I did notice that, like, not only did he reuse it, but it just didn't feel like as strong an impact, because, like, when he hit Sasuke, like, you fucking felt it, and it felt kind of good, because, Sasuke could use a kick in the face every so often,
I guess because, like, it's not the first time we've seen the kick, so maybe it doesn't need to carry as much impact, because this time he actually goes through with the move, and I guess that's where more of the emphasis was placed.
That's fair, yeah.
But
at the same time, he goes through the move. So, okay, because I was about to say, like, if he's kicking this guy less hard, then maybe he doesn't care as much to kick very hard.
That
but
could be
he goes through with the whole move. So, but I mean, if you're gonna reuse the panel, wouldn't you want to do it better this time? Like, if you're gonna keep drawing the same thing again and again, like as an artist, wouldn't you want to improve in doing the same thing? I don't know. This is,
but then again, this is a mangaka where they have to make these things once a week.
Yeah.
So I could understand from that perspective. I'm not too upset about the copying, but I mean, like I definitely get the complaint towards it that like, oh, this is less impactful when it's a far more intense scene than what was Sasuke, because now Rock Lee is actually defending people. But Dosu, that's the guy's name, the guy with the arm.
Dosu, Zaku, and Chick.
Yeah, her name
that's
was...
her name.
It was something with a K-A, but I...
Oh, that's a weird name.
But I don't remember what the rest of her name was. It was like...
Oh, that's... Okay, I thought that was like her whole name. And
No. She has more of a name. I just can't remember it. Or maybe it was... Was it like K-I-N? Was it like Keen? I don't know. I don't remember her name. She wasn't important. She's like...
They're minor characters.
Well, at least like with Zaku and Dosu, they feel like actual like relevant characters to the story. She's an afterthought. Like, we talk about
That's
Choji
the problem,
being...
Because Kishimoto loves his, repetition, where every trio has like the hardworking guy, the talented guy, and then the chick who's always an afterthought. Sakura was an afterthought, like back in when we were talking about the early chapters. Ten is the poster child of afterthought female characters, and the sound chick isn't much better. So yeah. Oh yeah. Anyway, skipping ahead slightly to when Choji, Shikamaru, and Inu bust in. One thing I noticed was when Choji attacked, we actually got some narration explaining his abilities and an internal monologuing. In other words, Choji is smarter than most of the characters fighting we've seen so far, because he's not explaining his abilities. He's keeping them in his head as he attacks, and I'm just like, Kishi, do this more, please.
Yeah.
Don't. And then, of course, because later during Chunin Exams, we have tons of characters the Chunin Exams really bothered me a bit because there's like so many fights, but then like during one of the early ones, like you had the crowd talking about what was happening as they perceived it, but then like I think like with Shino, maybe Shino's an example because they were explaining like his bugs.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. But yeah, he's not explaining his stuff as much to the villain. But then later fights do that. They just have the characters talking about their own abilities to their opponent again. And I'm just like, stop.
Like the one
like you've done it better before. Like with this Choji moment, is just like nothing wrong with the Choji moment, because you can't have characters commentating on every fight. I say, even though I know I'm completely wrong, because Kishimoto proves me wrong with Zetsu being there to commentate on every fight.
Well, even in these fights, because there are so many bystanders, there's always somebody there to react to what's going on, which is why it kind of irritates me that, like, especially with these fights, that they're all segmented the way they are. Like, I know they have to be for the important character moments, like, you gotta see Lee fail to build up Dozu and the sound crew, and then you have to have Sakura's important character moment, and you can't have Ino get involved because she's conflicted about her old friendship with Sakura.
Yeah,
but then
with Ino, I totally get Ino not jumping in immediately, because they're rival. Like Sakura losing, that's less competition for them later, But again, they didn't. Did they understand that it was a real serious life or death thing?
Yes.
I forget.
I'm pretty sure that they did, because at the beginning of the phase of the Forest of Death, they said hey, we need you to sign these consent waivers because you might die. And then
they don't kill any of the sound ninjas, but I don't know if they I thought that was mostly for the forest. They're at risk from the other teammates, but it's I guess I can see them feeling that the sound ninjas might kill them, but at the same time they are still kids, but they're also ninjas, so it's and I don't remember exactly what they were thinking when they first saw the scene, because if they weren't sure, because if if the sound ninjas are only going to knock Sakura out and take the scroll, then why did they have to intervene? But of course it was way worse than that. They wanted to go farther than that, so there's obvious reasons to intervene because they are from the same village, so there's that sort of it's like a miniature war between nations, is what the third Hokage was saying towards the end of the arc, or what we read, rather.
You could also make the argument that, in that scene where Sakura is biting Zaku, and he's just pummeling her. You could argue that that's a pretty physical attack. It's very brutal. There's whereas if they were just trying to get the scroll, then they could do something else to maybe knock her out quicker, but I mean, he was really punishing her when, the way she tried to defend herself, so you could make that argument. And I don't know, I guess just the look, the carnage of everything, where Sasuke and Naruto are already knocked down, Lee's bleeding out of his ear, and he's basically unconscious. Like, because, like, I know when, prior to this fight, you get the moment with Neji where Neji finds them, and they're like, oh, hey, you're Neji, and they try to flatter him.
Yeah, that's right.
But then they basically just run away, because, I don't know. But then, like, when you first get into the forest, like, almost immediately, Kiba's team takes out that one team, and you hear all this, like, blood-curdling screams, and it's clearly shown that the other characters hear it. Like, you have Naruto's team reacting, you have Ino's team reacting, so, I mean, I wouldn't say it's too much of a stretch for them to realize that, like, maybe it's not a life or death situation, but, like, life or severe injury, maybe.
Yeah.
And that would still be, like, we know that Ino and Sakura were once best friends. That's introduced here. And so, I mean, watching your former best friend, like, you might not like each other now, you might be rivals, but still watching them get pummeled like that might be enough to really, like, forget the consequences, just run in and do something.
And then, like, and then they had that fight, and it was kind of short before, like, Neji and Tenten showed up, because like, at that point, like I feel like the Sound Ninjas, like, because they'd already been battered a bit from the earlier fight against Lee and Sakura, so it's like they're kind of, like, already, like, thinking about retreating when Ino shows and their team shows up, and then when Neji and Tenten come up, it's like, you know, there had to be enough to scare them away, because they have to pass the exam so that they can show up in later fights, you know, so they can't just get beaten, but they have to be threatened away with enough force. So I guess that's kind of like why everyone came in and stuff.
What's really interesting about this phase of the exam in particular is how Shikamaru basically says that their team is the weakest, save maybe Naruto's squad. That there's, like, you know, how are we going to pick off weaker teams when we're probably the weakest here? Yet they still manage to pass. Yeah.
Well, maybe Shikamaru just doesn't like, because that was him that said it too. Because he maybe just doesn't have high expectations of them. Even though, one thing that surprised me was he's kind of a dork. Like, when he used the shadow technique to get Dosu trapped, I think the bandage guy,
and he makes that weird pose.
He, like, did, like, a pose with his hands, just, like, for no reason. Like, it didn't amount to anything. Like, I mean, the only thing it informed us, the audience, that, like, this was what Shikamaru's doing, is he's taking over his body, but because they're both making the silly pose. But I thought it was funny, because Shikamaru's, like, he's more of his, like, serious kind of standoffish, like, I don't give a fuck, but then he takes control of the body for the first time, and then he does this goofy pose, and I just, like, what are you doing, bro? Thought it was funny.
I screenshotted this one panel where, like, right after the fight ends, and Sakura, like, thanks Lee for helping her, saving her life. And, like, after she had her big character moment, and she's like, oh, my skills have been taken to a whole new level. But no. Like, you stood up for yourself, you had an important character moment, but what did you accomplish? Like, what new skills did you learn? How did you... I mean, like, you fought for your life. So, yeah, you really did, like, I guess... mental preparation, like, you are more you're not as afraid, but no. I wish they had developed, but, like, I guess if you count battle experience as a skill, then yeah, but, like, she hasn't. And then Lee had nothing to do with that then, because, like, I got to battle because you got knocked out, so thanks. I forgot about that moment. That's good. Oh boy. But I will say, so, I guess, go on. This arc, like, I know the exam, like, the very first part of the exam did a good job at kind of giving a more practical sense of, like, what these characters' abilities could accomplish, but this does do a good job at showing us these characters' powers and what they are capable of and how they can work. Like, with Ino's team, for example, you get to see how their abilities would play off of one another and how they were supposed to work. But at the same time, the way that the fights operate so conveniently that we are able to see all of these characters' powers, that's the part that I think kind of why I can't get fully invested in this fight, is that, like, we know that, Rock Lee jumps in and Sakura is just exhausted, so she doesn't really do anything there. But then we know that Ino and the others are watching from the sidelines. They don't really get involved, and then, like, as soon as they get involved and they start to lose, then Neji shows up, and then after Neji shows up, then Sasuke wakes up. So it's like everything happens so conveniently. Yeah. Like, when one moment happens, the next one starts. Like, there's no real,
it's definitely a bit, like you said, convenient, but again, I can kind of accept it because the focus of this arc isn't necessarily on, like, the fights, in a sense, because there's going to be more, the preliminaries and the final tournament, like, there's going to be way more one-on-one fights later, so it kind of makes sense that he wants to avoid that now, but yeah, it is definitely a bit, like convenient, like, I don't know, I guess Sasuke woke up first, like, I don't remember... Well, like was Naruto getting sealed that draining on him compared to Sasuke?
Yeah, Sasuke wakes up first because Neji shows up, and then Dosu's like, "Oh, so you want to fight us?" And then he's like, "Oh, looks like I don't have to." And then Sasuke shows up with his massive new chakra pull and his cool new tattoos and arm-breaking abilities. Right.
They said something about how Sasuke used his Sharingan to mimic the cursed seal, so we're already getting into the Sharingan being able to do everything territory.
Wait,
I felt
what?
Like, that's... Because it's like, I can understand him, like, mimicking Lee's, like, movements with the Sharingan, because that's what it does, it mimics movements, but now he's, like, mimicking the cursed seal so he could adapt it to his body better, and it's like, but
when was that established?
There was, like, a panel, like, there was a word balloon, maybe I'll try and find it, but it was just, like, they used the word mimic when I have a note here, chapter 56, I don't know when exactly, but that was my note, because it felt like that's like I said, that's where they start getting into, if I am remembering correctly, or my note is correct, it should be, but maybe it's a quirk of the translation, but I don't know what else, like, it would be, but I mean, I guess it kind of, like, well, because there's, like, the whole thing earlier with, like, Orochimaru's like, oh, he's got, like, a 1 in 10 chance of surviving the cursed seal, so using the Sharingan to explain how he survived that low chance, aside from being a main character, is like, maybe that's what he was trying to do there, is like sort of like make it understandable as to why he would live with such a low probability, but at the same time he's kind of using the Sharingan, starting to, like, go beyond what it should be doing. But,
so wait, is chapter 56, is this, like, during the Forest of Death? Because if it's when he's first using the power of the curse, that would make no sense, because, like, he has no idea how it works.
Hold on, let's find it.
But at the very least, I do like how the big, how this new power, like, influences him, like, how he gets completely, like, he's just this monster at first, like, I guess it shows what could happen, like, how his thirst for power will eventually kind of overtake him and lead him to make all these terrible decisions, but at least, like, in this scene, I love how he just, like, the scene of him breaking Zaku's arms is great, like, just the fact that Sasuke just completely... Like, you have this guy, he's being really arrogant, and, of course, he saved Dosu earlier by turning the dirt into, what do they call it, like a dirt pillow or whatever. So you have this guy, he's being a real jerk, he's, like, pummeling Sakura, and he does all this terrible stuff. And then you have Sasuke come in, and he just snaps his arms, and it's a really satisfying scene to watch.
Oh, yeah. But, well, real quick, though, I did find the exact line. Because Dosu's saying, just as I thought, the spell mark on his neck that little Sakura was blathering on about is the mark of the curse he was placed under. He's channeled it and mimicked it. So I don't, like, what does that mean? Like, when I think of mimic, I think of Sharingan. That's what's been established. The Sharingan copies things. Well, so that's what made me think of the Sharingan, but I don't know what else that would mean.
I think with that, it sounds like with Unko, like how she has the curse mark, but maybe she doesn't actually use it for her own power, but, like, it's established that the curse mark, there's, like, a 9 out of 10 chance that it will kill you.
Right, yes.
And even if it doesn't, like, it's still really painful. But, like, I guess when they say mimic, it, like, I don't understand how it could be the Sharingan, though, because, like...
That's the thing, well, because, like, what else could it be? Maybe it's just, like...
I don't know if the idea is just that, like, he... Like, it's a potential effect of the curse mark. Like, if it doesn't kill you, then it can, like, be mixed in with your chakra, just like that's kind of the effect of it.
I mean, well, that's what clearly happens, is that he's using it, and it's like... Well, also, it's, like, taking control of him a bit, like, because he, like, with him breaking Zaku's arms, it's, like... like you said, it's satisfying, but it's also a bit, like, scary, because this isn't the Sasuke we're used to. Well, like, he's gone darker than we're used to. This gives me
kind of the... I think more so, like, along the lines of Naruto's power, where it's not necessarily that he's willingly controlling it, like, he has mastered this curse and he's using it for his own effect. Like, the curse is kind of, like, it's, like, motivating him to take these actions. Like, with Naruto, when the Nine Tails chakra starts flowing through him, he becomes a lot more aggressive. Like, there's this clear effect on his psyche, when Sasuke kind of has that similar effect. So I don't know if they're necessarily trying to say that he is the one, like, mimicking it, but more so, like, his body has just acclimated to it, and he is just kind of being taken over by it. So, like, it's his own power, but, like, the power has overtaken him. That's, I think...
Yeah, like, maybe it is the translation. It's just such a weird use of the word mimic. Like, because, again, like, how it doesn't make sense for the Sharingan to be able to do this. But, so yeah, I'm just gonna file it off as a weird translation quirk, because maybe it's more like he's channeled it and he's able to, like, he's in control of his body, you know, like, he's not dead. So, I don't know, it's, it's, you know, something that would become a power-up, you know, but also it's you know, it's a curse seal, so it kind of goes against him sometimes. But, yeah, like later in his fight in the Chunin exam, he specifically has to control it so he doesn't use it, because otherwise he'll get, you know, kicked out of the exam and captured or whatever, because he's using the evil curse mark and stuff. So,
but there are a lot of other cool moments in the forest. I don't know. Did you have anything else to say about, like, this whole sound ninja fight?
Yeah, there's one more moment, but before I get to that, I thought it was funny, because, in this volume, I guess, you had little Kishimoto explaining some of his early life. So, unrelated, but it's in the same part of my notes. Because I thought this one was funny, because apparently he was talking about how, like, did you read these too? You read them for the last volume, or last time we read stuff, so I wanted to read them now too. But
yeah, I read them for the last one, but this one I procrastinated too long on this, so I kind of blew past them.
But, well, this one I thought was funny, because apparently, as a kid, he was talking to his mom about some brown stains on his wall.
Oh, I did read that
his mom said that, oh, that was him, like, painting on the walls in poop, and he's like, I've been wanting to be an artist ever since I was a kid. And I thought it was funny, because the jokes write themselves, especially if you don't like Naruto, where he's written in shit all his life, I guess. I thought that was just a bad joke I thought of.
Oh, no.
No, this is definitely not bad, but I was just like, Kishimoto, what the fuck are you doing? You're just opening yourself up to all these jokes, these bad jokes. And it's just like, no, Kishimoto, stop.
But at this point, everybody loved Naruto. He never could have foreseen what would happen.
But I mean, it was interesting hearing about, like, his drawing history. Like, he was a little elitist a bit. Like, you're drawing Doraemon wrong, and he was heavily influenced by, like, Dragon Ball and Dragon Quest, Toriyama's art style. So yeah, that was interesting. But the last moment I have to say on this little part of the arc is, like, Naruto insults Lee, and Sakura gets pissed at him, and Naruto's like, what happened? Like, what? He's, like, confused. So, I mean, like, the thing, like, we'll get into Naruto later, but, yeah, it was just a little moment, I guess, to show, you know, Sakura changing a little bit, but, still being mad at Naruto. So, rest in peace.
I don't know, like, at this point in the story, I think was where I was kind of starting to get a little, become a little, not disappointed, but, like, the way that the information is now kind of being withheld from characters. Like, it's important to the story, but I don't know, like, the way that Naruto's never informed of any of this because he's unconscious, and Sasuke doesn't want him to know. But
oh yeah, well, he doesn't want the curse seal stuff to get out. That's for sure. Like, that's
yeah. I mean, like, at least with Naruto, but I feel like they're also part of the same squad. Like, I don't know if I necessarily dislike it, but I guess I'm not 100% behind it.
I don't know. Maybe I'll have some thought. Maybe we'll have some thoughts on it when it comes up later.
Yeah, but
like if like when Naruto does find out about it, because he does, I know for sure, but I don't know if there's, like, a big moment attached to it, or if it just kind of happens. Because if nothing I'm not sure which would be better. Because if nothing happens, then, like, what was the point of keeping it secret from Naruto? But if there is a big reveal, then what, like, is the big reveal worth it? Like, that's the question, I guess. So we'll find out, because the curse seal does come up later in what we've read, and it's definitely going to come up later beyond that. So,
but for other characters who have, sorry.
Oh, I have, like, no notes on the rest of the arc, because there was, like, them meeting Kabuto and getting the other scroll. Like, they have a fight scene. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. It wasn't super.
I could just be...
it happened, you know, like, I don't remember much else. You know, I didn't think anything was interesting enough to write down.
I could just be misremembering from what I saw in the anime, but, like, based on how Gaara's been, like, introduced so far, I feel like he talks more than he did in the anime, and I could just be completely wrong misremembering things, but, like, I felt like in the anime he was... Like, he did speak, but he felt more like the silent monster type. Like, I think the scene in the Forest of Death where he massacres this group, it felt, oddly enough, it felt longer in the manga. Even though, obviously, I could breeze through it quicker because it's just pages. But, It felt like the
I think
anime
it was
might have just
chapter 2. Yeah,
I think it was like a whole chapter maybe, because like you have Kiba's team building up to it, and then the fallout all I think encompassed in that one thing. But I feel like the anime just kind of maybe glossed over it some. Like, I don't know, I feel like Gaara just says more in this scene, and I don't know, it feels like it progresses slower somehow. But I don't quite know what it is. Like, I don't know if the other characters spoke more, but I don't know, something about it just felt different. I'm not saying that I disliked it. I think I actually preferred it this way, because you get kind of some interesting interactions with, I mean, it could have been the exact same in both, and I'm just completely misremembering things, but...
Well, speaking of interactions, what I thought was interesting in a weird way, like, Gaara's starting to, like, kill Kankuro, and Kankuro's like, hey, don't be like that, we're brothers, and he's like, I've never thought of either of you as my siblings, and then Tamari's like, chill out, we're siblings, and then he, like, chills out a bit, and I'm just like, couldn't they have used the whole, like, the fact that all three of them need to make it to the tower to pass, like, as, like, grounds for him not to kill any of them? Like, it just felt weird, like,
they could have.
Why did Tamari bring up the sister thing right after he said that he doesn't care about the sibling thing? Like, I was like, what was it? What is this? What?
Yeah, like, if they wanted to make that, like, better, they could have maybe, like, if they wanted to show that he cares more about Tamari, maybe they could have been like, I don't see you as a sibling, referring to Kankuro, but then when she's like, hey, I'm,
right,
like, your sister,
but that
right?
would have the problem of giving Gaara too much of a heart, when the whole point is that, like, he's this monster, so, like, he has no good feeling. But yeah, it was just a weird way to resolve the tension when, again, there was, like there was more the... there was another way to do it, with, again, like, all three of them needed to reach the tower. And then, of course, they do. I think I mentioned earlier with, like, they get to the tower, Gaara did it in record time without a scratch, and all the Jonin are like, holy shit, what is this guy? And that was a, more good build-up to Gaara being really strong. And so that was pretty cool. Like, yeah, I like that.
I also would like to give credit for how Kiba's team is built up in this part of the exam, like, as soon as they enter the forest, you have the guys find them, and then the way that they take him out, where Shino has these, like, parasitic bugs that just fall from the sky, and they just completely, like, they would basically, like, completely, like, drain away their life force.
Arena, like, do not mess with Shino here,
and then, like, just the way that, like, Kiba carries himself as well. I especially think the look of, like, just his character design comes off as very intimidating to me, because he looks like a hunter, like he's out to like hunt down his prey, and, like, I don't know, it's just something...
Yeah, like, most of his face is hidden in, like, which I don't think is true of, like, the fact that his eyes are hidden is both of his eyes. That's, like, I'm trying to think of other Genin characters, like, who conceal their, like, the Dosu, even Dosu has his face hidden in bandages, but you can still see an eye.
Yeah.
And that's, like, there's a lot of emotions that can be gone across an eye. So Shino is, like, so, like, you see almost nothing. So it's definitely, he's got that with him, so...
I definitely think, like, putting him and Kiba on the same team, and then juxtaposing that with this innocent Hinata, I think it's a really interesting move, and it definitely plays into her, like, character later on, where she's...
Well, what I thought, because I thought back to when I, like, shouldn't Hinata and Sakura have been switched? Because, I feel like, and for kind of the same reason, because, Kiba is a lot like Naruto, is a bit like Naruto, and Shino's a bit like Sasuke, where you got the serious guy and the goofier guy, so Hinata being meek, so quiet and meek would have been, equally good with Naruto and Sasuke, I think, because they're louder, and Sasuke is pretty quiet too, so I guess it wouldn't have been as quiet, as strong, but then Shino's quiet, so I don't know. Yeah, but I just remember having that thought earlier.
But then definitely I think the way that they get built up, like, immediately upon entering the Forest of Death, they take somebody out. But then, like, then you see Gaara's team, and then these three are completely, they're completely terrified when they see what he does to the Mist group.
Oh man, that was brutal.
So it's yet another...
Like, was there the big explosion of blood in the anime?
Yeah, but, like, there was still the explosion of blood, but I guess because of the way he's, like, in that sort of, like, coffin, I guess it would be okay. I think they might change the coloration of it a bit, like, it kind of turns to black or whatever, but... Still, like, there's still that brutal moment where he just crushes him. It's a really cool scene. Gaara just looks like a badass. He's a guy you don't want to cross.
Yeah.
He's not like a Sasuke badass where, like, he still kind of feels human. No, not Gaara.
Yeah, Gaara's just got all this build up as just this complete monster, and it's pretty effective, which I think I mentioned before. But so yeah, I don't have anything left to say on the forest itself. So what about you?
No, not really. I mean, like, the whole setup there towards the end, Kabuto's reveal was kind of cool, because, like, throughout this arc, like, after the 4 days have passed or whatever, and then you have them trying to find this scroll and get to the tower, I do think it's interesting how Kabuto does appear yet again, and he kind of helps them out, and the way that some of his more suspicious, like, glances or whatever could look is kind of explained away through, like, there's the interesting moment where Sasuke challenges him to a fight, and Kabuto's like, well, if you wanted to fight me, you would have just fought me. You wouldn't have told me. And so it's an interesting kind of moment for Sasuke that he's not, like, I don't know, he has a heart, I guess. He's not completely willing to just betray this guy, even though he doesn't totally know who Kabuto is. But I guess the interaction at the beginning of the arc was kind of, there's enough of, like, an interest in Kabuto that he could potentially see some use out of the guy. But, like, there's a moment where they're, like, going to the tower, and Kabuto's talking about, like, how everyone's going to be, like, waiting, like, lying in wait to just strike and ambush these people. And so then Sasuke's like, oh, so you found us, because Kabuto's been separated from his group, so he's like, oh, you found us because you want strength in numbers. And he gives, like, this suspicious look at Sasuke, but, like, I don't know if it's necessarily foreshadowing. It felt like
more like confident, like, or like you understood, like it was more like he was, like, satisfied or impressed with Sasuke's deduction, you know, like, oh, you understood what I was really doing, you know, or maybe because again he's there for Orochimaru, he's like, man, you're a really smart kid. I bet Orochimaru would love to steal your body or whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean by, like, there's that hidden meaning to it, because we obviously don't know yet that he's Orochimaru's spy. Right. So, but you could just, something that might look suspicious, you can wave away because, like, oh, he's obviously competing against these guys, so he wouldn't want to look like he's asking for help.
Yeah, there's a few ways you could read it, so it's a good build-up.
But then, obviously, you do have Sasuke,
because that's the thing with, like, foreshadowing, is, like, foreshadowing is really awkward if, like, there's only one possibility, or no, here's what it is. If they're foreshadowing something, and the moment of foreshadowing feels really out of place, like, you know, you feel it, like, it feels like it could have been cut entirely and nothing would have been lost, because now you're going to be thinking of, like, why did that happen? This must be something that happens later, and then you're thinking about that the whole time. Yeah, this was a good example of something that has, because it has multiple meanings, you know, it's not out of place. Like, you know, you couldn't cut this Kabuto stuff and, like, so it's better foreshadowing, because the biggest hints are dropped in the same chapter that he's revealed to be working for Orochimaru, so it's not particularly obtuse, you know? Like, it makes sense for there to be, like, a really knowledgeable, like a Tonfa type character, knowledgeable, you know, guy, and then of course we find out that he's actually gathering information for Orochimaru, you know, so it's like, oh, it's like a perfect line of, you know, line of thought, so to speak, or, yeah.
I kind of like how this next situation develops. Like, I don't know if I necessarily, like, obviously you have 21 teams, and this ends up going into a tournament arc, so, obviously you had to kind of trim the fat here, so, like, you end up with you have 10 one-on-one matches. Obviously, like, for a proper tournament, that's not going to play out. So you have the draw between Sakura and Ino, and then the one guy gets killed off. So then you manage to dwindle it down to 8. So it's like, oh, we have this proper tournament now. It works. Even though, like, it was like he had almost set it up, like, with the way that the matches end up turning out. There is kind of like a 9-man bracket, but then he just throws it away later on, which I guess technically we haven't read that far, though.
As far as trimming the fat, like what you mentioned, because the way, like, I thought it was neat that Kabuto is the one who drops out. I mean, I guess because he's the only, like, because there were his teammates who are, like, complete non-characters. Like, we've known, at this point, we know nothing about them, so he could have easily contrived an excuse to have one of them get dropped so that Kabuto could fight, but instead he got Kabuto out because he had more other plans with them, and then had everyone else fight, you know, so I thought that was, you know, I mean, again, like, you need the filler in the tournaments, like, characters are obviously going to lose, so you can hype up the ones who are obviously going to win, you know, like, so, like, with the Sound Ninjas, they're pretty clearly fodder, except for the one who does win against, Choji, who's even bigger fodder, literally.
Yeah.
Bigger, I guess. And then, so anyway, I guess we're finally getting to the preliminary fights, 2 hours into the podcast.
Yeah, these fights, I I would honestly make the argument that a lot of these fights are more interesting than the big, like, the big, huge payoff fights that happen later on. Because in that sense, they become a lot more bombastic, and that's kind of the point where Naruto starts to sort of lose me. Not necessarily early on, because this is the first time they're really getting to those stakes, but later on the fights end up getting really, like, they become super, I don't know, there's just a lot on the line. The stakes are a lot higher, and the powers that are being thrown around are a lot higher. Whereas, like, in these preliminary matchups, obviously, these aren't the strongest characters that we're going to be seeing because we have to trim the fat. There's 20 people. We need to cut it down to at least 10. So a lot of these fights feel more confined. Maybe, like, the characters are less skillful, you could say. Because, like, there's one fight that I can't believe that like, the anime didn't do this, so I never saw it coming. The fact that Tenten is defeated off screen.
Yeah.
Why?
I was wondering what you were going to think about that, because I remember that when it got expanded on the manga, or in the anime, rather, so. Yeah,
but, like, I can't believe that, like, they've prioritized Sakura and Ino's thing over Tenten, who, like, as far as the female characters that have been introduced so far go, I would have to say Tenten was, before this moment, she could have been one of the more interesting ones, because she's part of Neji and Lee's team, so...
Right, which is probably the strongest team after maybe Gaara's, but...
Yeah, so you would think, well, she could maybe at least put up an impressive fight, and that would help kind of, like, I guess you want to put over Tamari in that, like, she defeated this girl off screen. That's how crazy powerful Tamari is, but...
I guess the justification you can use is that, like, going from Sakura and Ino in emotional fight, like, how do you top that with another fight? And it's like, so you're kind of like, again, the same issue with Rock Lee being followed by Choji and Dosu. It's like you've got these, like, really emotional moments followed by, like how do you top that? So you just kind of, like, you let the tensions ease out with a less important fight. But then, like, I don't know, maybe it was better. Maybe it was worked perfectly fine in the anime. I don't remember the fight. To
be fair,
Tenten has a pretty boring fucking fighting style, so I don't know what you could really do.
And then, like,
Tamari's is just, like, the perfect counter.
The fight in the anime is really repetitive. It's boring. But, like, still, the fact that she's...
as I remembered it. Okay, I wasn't off my rocker. Gotcha.
Yeah, but I guess, I don't know, like, if Kishimoto had thought it out, there might have been more planning behind, like, what Tamari could have done, what her attacks might have been, whereas in the anime, it's like, well, obviously she has to lose, she has to get destroyed, so what really can we do with her? And at that point, like...
Right, so you just get, like, Tenten throws shuriken, Tamari, it's not very effective. Yeah, Tenten throws more shuriken, it's also not very effective.
Because we know that she's a weapons specialist, but we don't really know what that entails, so they didn't have much to work with.
Okay, yeah, because I don't remember. Does she get other fights later? I don't remember at all. I don't remember Tenten doing anything.
The only other fight I remember that she has is the one against her doppelganger in, like, the very first arc of Shippuden, which is, I guess, the Kazekage rescue thing.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't remember if that actually happened in the manga as it was. Like, she was definitely involved in a conflict at that arc, but I don't remember if there was a doppelganger thing. I think that might have been anime original.
Oh, okay.
So in other words, Tenten does nothing.
No. Which sucks because she is part of a pretty powerful team, but it just goes to show that on a three-man squad,
I wouldn't say she's interesting. It's more that because nothing was done with her, she had potential because nothing was done with her, but nothing got done with her. So it's like, well, there you go. Like,
I guess someone on each squad has to be the afterthought, and her team was too hype. She had to take the full brunt of the looking completely weak.
There's a reason she's the poster child for, like, useless female character extra third squad mate thing. Because there's nothing to her. Like, she's attracted to Kakashi. And she throws shuriken, which are, like, useless. So that's it. That's her entire character. The end. Like, yeah, rest in peace. So I'm trying to remember. Okay, because there was the Sasuke fight against the Kabuto's teammate. That was, he's using Lee's techniques. That was fine, I guess. I don't remember. It was fine. What did you think about it?
Well,
I don't remember.
I think, or no, maybe it's not until the later fight where they talk about his speed. But, like, I don't know, the idea that, I guess because the curse mark has given him more power now, which is, like, it's kind of cheap, but I can justify it in that there's that more sinister side to it where the power could, like, possess him. But, like, the fact that now he's, like, Lee is impressed with Sasuke's movements, and it's like, what did Sasuke really like, Sasuke didn't really do anything to earn the power, and I guess that's kind of the point, was that he's just kind of given it against his will.
I thought he was purposely, like, not calling on the power of his curse steel, unless it gave him, like, a passive boost even inactive. Well, like, I thought he only got the power boost when he used it, and the whole point during that fight was he couldn't use it, otherwise he'd get in trouble, because he got to get, he couldn't let anyone know about the cursed seal because it was a big problem, and so
I guess it does continue to build up Sasuke as being one of the top ninja in this exam, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting all my information mixed up now. But like the fight here, like it's a little weird that he goes up against the guy who like is perfect for his situation, that it would he would be the worst against, but he still manages to overcome him without like actually having to rely on anything, it's a cool moment. Yeah. It's not that I dislike the fight. You can't really get invested in Yoroi because you do have that kind of...
The guy he's fighting is like nobody. It's like, who cares? It's just there to kind of get Sasuke to the next round, because he has to win, but he's not in a very good state, so he's got to fight basically fodder. Like, he can't use his cursed seal. He's weakened from the force of death. It's kind of so. Yeah, it's just he got lucky, we could say, because if he was up against like Lee or Neji or Gaara, he would have been done, son.
I do think, though, it is interesting how the fact that these are essentially throwaway characters really plays into the role they serve for Orochimaru, is that they're just fodder. They're just pawns that he can dispose. Like the 3 sound ninja we've seen get built up, they mean nothing to Orochimaru. The Kabuto's team, they mean nothing. Kabuto's really the only one who Orochimaru might have like any real investment in, because he serves a stronger purpose to him. And you do kind of get that, like, in a way, a passing of the torch thing with Kabuto and Yoroi. You get that brief dialogue, which kind of sets up this fight. Which is better than the other guy who fights Kankuro in a cool, like, it's a cool fight, but you can't really get invested because we know who Kankuro is, but we don't really know who he is, and we have no clue who this other guy is. So
right, and that was when I think they were talking more about their abilities again. So I was, or like Kankuro explained, or maybe there was more like commentary about no, that was after too. It was like, because Naruto was like he's like he 3 or 4 times this arc, he's like, hey, they can't do that, and well, they can, because you can use animals / tools / medicine / so to explain like no one's breaking the rules. So it's just, again, these kind of, like, fillery fights to just sort but then, they're not, like, again, like, Kankuro's abilities did need to be established at some point, so, because he'd been kind of secretive up to this point. Like, there was the bit in what even came of that again? When he went to the bathroom, or...
Yeah, because he had the puppet, which was like a stand-in proctor, so, like, he made this... But then Ibiki obviously realizes that because he talks about how he's playing with dolls or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, does he implies know? That he knows what's up. So he obviously knows that he has faked it, but I don't know, I guess he thought it was clever.
But I'm trying to remember, what was Kankuro doing again? Like, he went to the bathroom, did he, like...
Oh, because Gaara used his, like, eye or whatever to copy answers, and then somehow he got it to Kankuro when he went to the bathroom, then when he came back, he gave it to Tamari.
Okay, that's what I forgot. So, okay. I just remember missing that and feeling like, wait, what was the point of this Kankuro stuff again? Like, I don't... But, okay, yeah, you're right. I forgot. Oh, yeah, one more thing from around this period that I forgot to mention is, when Kakashi takes away Sasuke to go steal him up, and Orochimaru just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, again, that's more build up to Orochimaru, because he just has the freedom to move anywhere, and it's pretty fucking spooky. Because he's just so, like, how did he find this place? Like, did he follow Kakashi without Kakashi noticing? Like, it's just like, and then, it just gives him a bit more of that presence. But again, it kind of like, he wants Sasuke to come to him, so it makes sense why he's not doing anything. But then, I mean, I guess you could also bring up questions from before about, like, why is he not, like, the Chunin Exams, and, like, if he's...
What?
So, okay, so the next fight is, Ino and Sakura. So I guess, back onto the soccer train. So, okay, one thing I thought was weird, because there was a flashback, and they were talking about how, like, because they're female ninjas, they have to be in touch with their feminine side, or the feminine wiles, or something like that, and... Like, what the hell is that?
Well, I think the idea was, like, that way they can, like, pose as unthreatening, like, damsels or whatever, but then surprise people. I think that's what they had hinted at that scene. But it still is kind of weird, I suppose.
Yeah, like, it's just...
I mean, I think that would make sense, because, like, if you were... Like, I know Shikamaru it's established in, like, this whole section that he kind of has that more traditionalist mindset, because he's like, oh, I have to fight a girl, and he sees that as like humiliating to him, because he's like, oh wow, I have to do this, they're gonna make me fight a girl, like as if, like, I don't know, he shouldn't have to, like they can't defend themselves or whatever. So I guess that kind of plays into the idea that a kunoichi is supposed to kind of, like, they can carry this facade, so if people mistake them and underestimate them, then they can actually show off their true abilities and catch people off guard. Yeah. That's about the best I could think of.
But at the same time, like, I don't think, like, Tamari, the girl he fought, Sakura, like, none of them actually act like that.
No.
So. I don't know. It's just, it's a little weird.
I've never been a fan of this backstory, because, like, the idea is that Ino and Sakura, they became rivals and started hating each other because they both liked Sasuke. Like, and, like, the way that Ino is built up, like, oh, she like, Sakura was embarrassed of her forehead, so Ino was the one who kind of helped her get over that. So Ino seems to be going out of her way to do all this nice stuff for Sakura, and then Sakura is like, oh, I heard you like Sasuke. I guess we're rivals now, and that's just the end of their friendship. Like,
and I mean, at least during the fight, they were beating the ever-living shit out of each other. So that, like, it wasn't like he didn't pull punches because they're both girls. Like, that was, and then, though there was some weird, like, okay, like, after Ino cut her hair to mirror the Sakura moment, like, Ino was gonna do her, like, her body swap thing, and Sakura's like, I know that technique. That bolt of energy you shoot moves really slowly, and I was just like, a good time to use that technique would be while I'm distracted and talking, and it's like, because she was just talking, and it's just, like, talking about their abilities again, and just because that moment struck out to me in particular because, like, the thing moves slowly, so it's like, but Sakura's opening herself up to it by stopping dead in her tracks and talking, and it's like, come on, you could do better. But what I thought was kind of cool and funny, but also kind of weird, was when did get a control of Sakura, and, like, the inner Sakura that had always been, like, a gag up to this point turns out to be, like, a tangible part of her character and, like, kicks, out of her head, and, like, Sakura is aware that she has, like, a split. She's like, oh, girls have to have a tough interior or something like that. And I didn't dislike it, but at the same time, it's just kind of weird for this series to take a gag like that and transform it into such a more serious context.
And it's never brought up again. Like, that's it.
Oh, really? Oh, like, God, damn
it. She doesn't, this inner part of her isn't, like, an actually, like, significant part of her character. Like, she has a split personality or something, or somehow she can, like, channel this inner Sakura, and, like, no, it does nothing. It's just this one moment is the payoff, I guess. Like, it's like an explanation for why Sakura can shake off Ino, which is... And, like, they do also say that Ino's chakra was depleted or whatever because of the Forest of Death, so she couldn't really hold it, but, like, still, it's a weird way to overcome that power when it's... Like, if it had been brought up again, like, this was now a big part... Like, it was some sort of ability she had, that would have been cool, and the series could have expanded on that, but...
Yeah, like, or the fact that she has a split personality that she's aware of, it's like, that's such a... It feels like something that should be relevant to her character in some way, but instead it's just that gag of her, having, her inner thoughts being separate from her outward appearance, like when the first moment where she, that I remember, when she, was like scolding Naruto for putting the eraser above the door, but it was actually inwardly like, yeah, fuck that teacher who's being late and shit, so like, yeah, but then it's like, again, it's such a weird moment.
It's kind of like with the crystal ball that the Hokage had. It's like, why introduce this and give it this ability if you were never going to see it again? Like, if it's not going to be fully fleshed out or explained. Like, before it's obvious, like, oh, this is just her inner thoughts. Like, she's not really, she's like putting on a facade with her outward appearance. This is what she actually feels. But now it's like, oh, this is a separate part of her being. But never again. Never again.
Okay, yeah, so that was definitely a weird one. So let's see. I think after that was the Shikamaru fight. But I mean, I think what I noticed about that fight is that he mostly did the talking after he won, like explaining what was happening and stuff. Like I thought that was okay, because it wasn't during the fight, like, which makes sense because he's supposed to be smarter, like he's the
and it's not like one of those situations one of the smartest characters in the
series, I think.
It's not one of those situations where like he is revealing his abilities because they obviously know that he can possess shadows and like we know that he's intelligent, but like his specific plan for that fight is not giving away anything and like all plans he could have for future fights. So it's not like he's revealing a core technique, like how something operates. He's just kind of explaining how he won. And I that's much better than having a character talk about like, this is what I can do and these are my weaknesses.
Which is the worst, yes. But though there was a bit moment, like maybe it's it's supposed to be part of his character again, where he's where like she threw the needles with the bells, and he's like, oh, you say next you're gonna throw some needles with bells and some needles without bells to trip me up, and then but that's not what she did. But he was like explaining what he thought she was going to do. And it's like, what if she was going to do that? Like, if you thought she was going to do that, then you should have not told her, so you could take advantage of the fact that she was going to do that somehow. But I don't know how he could have at 2. But there was just a little bit that took away from it slightly, but not enough to aggravate me. It was just like, oh, that happened.
Yeah, the fight passes so quickly that something like that doesn't really stick with you. It's not that significant of a fight to begin with, so it's not that intrusive of a moment.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do like these fights.
And did you have anything else to say about it? Or
well, just like this fight is a good example of it. How it gets enough spotlight to like we actually get to see how these characters think, how they act, how they fight. But at the same time, it's not like the anime where the pacing might be stretched out so far that it's like you can fly through these fights pretty quickly. Like you get an idea of how it does everything that it should. You get an idea of how the characters fight, how they act, how they think. But at the same time, we're not like fully developing like a huge drama on it. Like with the Sakura Ino thing, it was more dramatic, but that there was the backstory they were going into with that. Whereas with most of the other characters that aren't like the main 3 or, like the less significant fights, they get enough time to actually show us these characters, but they don't get so much time that it like disrupts the pacing or anything.
I didn't feel like, I agree. I didn't feel like any of the fights were too long for insignificant characters or too short for the major ones. Like every fight was pretty, fine. Like again, I mean, some of them had their issues, of course, like the Sakura one we were just talking about, but overall, it's definitely a fine series of battles. So I guess after that one, if you was a bit of a more important one, where it's Naruto versus Kiba, because you have Naruto gets to show his stuff in front of all the Jonin, that's sort of the what's going on there, I guess, and then. Yeah, I do like this fight because Naruto does a lot of cool like tricks. Like I think my favorite one was when he clones himself or he disguises himself as Kiba while Akamaru is also disguised as Kiba, and then Kiba's like, I can smell you, and he like punches Naruto, and then it's like, oh no, it's Akamaru, and then he's like, oh, you're actually Naruto, and he punches him, oh no, it's also Akamaru, and then it turned out that Naruto turned himself into Akamaru. That was a good one. I like that one. Do you have any moments of the fight that you liked, or?
Yeah, I also really liked the fight between... I actually really liked the fight between Kiba and Naruto. In the anime, it felt kind of slow and tedious, the way they drew it out. And so the shock, like Naruto's like shocking twists, like how he would fake him out, they felt, I guess, less impactful just because there was so much...
It was more drawn out.
Yeah, it was more drawn out, so it was like, oh, okay. But whereas in the manga, it seemed to just fly by, and I don't know. It still is a little repetitive. Like it
was only two chapters or a chapter. Like it was fairly short.
I just like in the anime. I could be wrong on this, but I feel like the fang over fang technique was used a lot more than in the manga. Whereas Naruto gets hit with it once, and then he's able to like block the second one or kind of like figure out how to counter it. But I honestly, when it comes down to fights in this part of the exam, I like now that I revisit this fight, I actually think that this might be one of my favorites. It's not my favorite. Yeah,
I think. Well, we have a high bar to set, but yeah, this is definitely top 3, I would say, if not top 2. It's because the one thing I wanted to ask was well, one thing I thought was interesting rather, because like this is Naruto at his coolest so far in the manga, because like during the Wave Country he fought. Like, he had his trick with Zabuza with the shuriken stuff, but Sasuke was also involved in that, so it wasn't purely Naruto. And then after Sasuke, quote-unquote, died, or was killed by Haku, he went rage mode, but that wasn't really Naruto moving. That was, his, like, it wasn't, and it wasn't necessarily cool either. It was Naruto being, controlled by his motions and the Kyuubi chakra and stuff. But with this, it's like Naruto being like, this is the first time Naruto really goes into, like, Goku or Luffy territory or Gon with just the battle genius stuff, I'd say, or in multiple moments across the fight. But then at the same time, he undercuts that a bit with the fart, because it's like an accidental lame thing. I don't really like how Kakashi's like, oh, well, there's no way that was planned, because I was going to mention that, like, if that wasn't his plan was to throw him off because of Kiba's strong sense of smell, then what would have happened? Like, what was his plan B, or was Kiba just gonna knock him out there and the match would have been over? It does kind of undercut everything that Naruto had been doing. I'm like, it's a funny gag, I like it, but the fact that it's an accident also kind of seems to go against what this fight was, like what Naruto was doing in this fight. I mean, but yeah, it's like, because I feel like Kishimoto could have, like, just not done that, like, just had Naruto do his thing before Kiba got to him, but he specifically chose for this to happen, because, like I said, I think he doesn't want us to see Naruto as too cool quite yet, which, for whatever reason, I get, because he is kind of a dork.
I feel that if you kept the fart gag in it, it still prevents him from being super cool, but at the same time, if it was like, oh, I did that on purpose, then it would have at least felt like it was part of his plan, not like it was just a coincidence that he didn't get,
Though now I'm imagining if he did fart on purpose and he tried to, like, it was played off as it was cool, but that might make it more funny in a way, if it were like serious humor, kind of, where it's so goofy, but the characters are playing it seriously somehow. Yeah. But no, that's not what happened. It was very clearly a gag. So,
yeah. But you did mention about the fake out with Orochimaru, and there's just a lot of cool moments like that in this fight from Naruto. In a way, it doesn't feel like it's not Naruto, but this is clearly a Naruto that has gained experience. He has learned to kind of master his techniques, and we saw a bit of this in the Forest of Death towards the end when they're approaching the tower, and he does all that cool stuff with his clones, and he's like now starting to transform into like his opponents and also like his teammates, and also doing his clone jutsu on top of this transforming.
Yeah, right. I totally forgot about that one, where he transformed into his whole team so that at Kabuto, Sakura, and Sasuke, so they could go and do other stuff while he was distracting the antagonist. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Although at the same time, the fact that like he does all that and he's clearly exhausted, but he's like, no, I'm going to keep fighting, and then he proceeds to do almost all of the work. That's getting a bit too much for me. Naruto's starting to get a little too OP.
Well, that's the thing, is because even from the beginning, like the first fight he has is he summons 1,000 shadow clones and beats the ever-living shit out of one guy. Like, against most of the opponents in the Chunin exam, he could do that, but I guess his exhaustion is the only thing keeping that from happening. Like, he could have just done that against the Rain guy, filled the forest with clones, like, what was he gonna do? Or against Kiba, fill the arena with clones, what are he and Orochimaru gonna do? But he's, again, the exhaustion is a way to write himself around that really easy backdoor, so it's something, because that's not interesting. If he just summon 1,000,000 clones and wins, then the fight's pretty boring. But again, why doesn't he? Oh, he's exhausted, so it's something, I guess, to keep that from happening.
But then, in this fight, though, I do, in a way, it could potentially be a little difficult to suspend my disbelief for some of these fights, because this is immediately after the Forest of Death. They really haven't had much time to recover.
Right, they're all tired, so...
With Sasuke, you clearly see that, in that he can't... Like, he has no access to any of his power. Part of that's because of the curse mark, but also because they just did all this stuff in the Forest of Death. But a lot of these characters seem to be going... Now, there are certain characters who weren't even tested in the Forest, like Neji, Gaara. They didn't really go through much, and you could argue that Lee had 4 days to recover after... getting knocked out by the sound ninja, but some of the characters, I do feel like, I don't know, it seems like they have more strength than you maybe should feel that they should at this stage. Again, I don't think it's a huge issue because for the most part the fights still are really entertaining, and there are instances where the characters are clearly restricted by their fatigue. But like, I mean, I guess the same is the case for Naruto here because he doesn't summon a bunch of shadow clones. I mean, he actually finds a way to use his chakra effectively with just layering techniques on top of one another rather than like what he did in the Forest of Death, where he just made a bunch of shadow clones and just started attacking blindly.
Right. So I think that's all I had to say about the fight.
I know.
Did you have anything else to say, or was that it?
Well, before you had mentioned the parallels between Kiba's team and Naruto's team. Mm-hmm. So I think this fight
I think you mentioned that actually, but yeah. Either way.
Well, either way, I think this fight does a cool job at kind of showing that parallel, because you have Kiba, who's also a big, obnoxious guy, but he's also this strong, credible opponent. Like, everyone's like, oh my god, Naruto just beat Kiba. So it's clearly like an underdog matchup there for Naruto, but at the same time, you kind of have that parallel, and it shows how Naruto might be arrogant a lot of the time, but like in a battle, he doesn't make the same mistake that Kiba did, where he completely underestimates Naruto, doesn't take him seriously, and that kind of helps Naruto get the win.
Yeah.
But then towards the end, Kiba does acknowledge him, but even then Naruto still wins, which I think is really cool, because it's not just, oh, I won because my opponent didn't treat me seriously. I do like that those moments are there, but then Kiba does kind of wake up and he calms down after Naruto's been playing all these tricks on him, but even then he still loses in the end, which I think is really cool.
Right. Naruto's reputation precedes him, but it's not why he's winning. Like, he's not just winning because everyone thought he was a goofball, but he's not that much of a goofball. Yeah, it's cool.
Now, I think after this was Hinata versus Neji?
Yes, yeah, that's next, I believe. So, boy, this is another... Well, it's... Okay, we're mostly getting the exposition on those two and their family and their history, and more on the various clans in the Leaf Village, and along with their abilities, which, of course, is building up to Naruto's later fight with Neji. God, see, and this one, it's like... Because most of Hinata's build-up has been, she's cute, and then she gets the ever-loving shit beat out of her. It's a bit almost, I don't almost want to say easy to feel like emotion, because but it is well done, I'd say. But what do you have to say? Or
I really liked how at the beginning of the fight, this is definitely one of my favorite moments in this part of the exam, is how Neji is just, I mean, he's talking about how he has this all-seeing eye, but he's also just kind of reading her body language and just calling attention to everything that she's feeling, all her insecurities, and just proceeds to just break her down just purely by her own fears, her own shortcomings. He just goes after her and just slams her like, oh, you're protecting your chest because you're trying to build a barrier between us, and you're holding your lip because it's a feeling of security, or something along those lines. It's really cool. It's a good way to make Neji look threatening without anything really happening.
Yeah, and I guess it also shows that like he's either good with people, or he knows people, or he knows Hinata. Maybe he's been watching her for years out of envy, perhaps. There's a I'm not sure exactly which way they go, but it shows that he's what's the word? Observation? No, that's not a good word. Observant. That's the word I was looking for.
It's just a good psychological warfare moment and then of course when Hinata finally overcomes it and the actual fighting between them,
help, and
not much really happens. They just kind of throw a bunch of strikes back and forth.
Seemed like she hits him a couple times, and so then we get explained what the hell they're doing, and it seems like, oh, maybe she's winning, but then she starts like coughing up blood, and she just gets fucking destroyed.
This is one of the moments.
It's Neji.
This is one of the moments from the anime that I distinctly remember watching as a child, because this was around the time that I got into it. This and the Gaara Rock Lee fight had some strong moments I remember, but like the part where Neji like strikes all her pressure points or whatever, and then pulls back her sleeve, and you see all these spots,
the bruises,
the bruises, and how her chakra's just completely cut off. And I mean, this fight's very brutal, which I do like. It's a good kind of tone shift coming off of that Naruto fight where it's very, very uplifting, very inspirational. Naruto, proving to everybody that he is a legitimate threat, he should be taken seriously. And then we take this darker turn, which does help set up the next fight. I think the way that the fights are structured, I know we talked about how Choji being there at the end was kind of but for everything else, I think the fights, the way that they play out, like how the fights are ordered, rather, I definitely think it's a really strong lineup. Very clear.
Well, yeah, I mean, because this was another strong one, but then it's immediately followed up by perhaps one of the strongest fights in the entire series. So, but before we get into that, there was one other thing about this fight that sort of folds back to what I was talking to last time, and there was a comment saying something about how, like, oh, it's kind of vague as to how Luffy needs to become Pirate King or something like that, because I talked about how I was unable to connect with Naruto on some level because what he needed to do to become Hokage was vague. Yeah. But applying some things I thought of during the Hinata fight to that, I think another part of it is that what the Hokage entails, like, it's also vague. And I think, because I thought of something here that maybe it's just me having too many expectations, but, like, the moment was, Naruto inspires Hinata to fight, and yeah, she gets destroyed, and all the emotions are focused on Neji destroying her, but in some way, Naruto is partly accountable for, just as Hinata and Neji are also accountable for what happened to Hinata. Mostly Neji, but, like, as a Hokage, a leader, people are going to take what Naruto says seriously. And this is, like, one of the times you have someone who Naruto's barely connected with taking what he says seriously and getting punished for it. So I just had a weird feeling because it's like, it could have been used as a way to further Naruto's, he wants to be respected. And this is someone respecting him and suffering for it. So it could have made him maybe a bit more introspective on that. Or, because, this is something that could happen again if he's Hokage. And might will happen more. But
that would have been an interesting direction to take. I mean, obviously, he's going to end up fighting Neji later on. So it's more like he takes up the fight, like, for vengeance for Hinata. But, I mean, that would have been interesting, because especially when you have Neji kind of tear Hinata apart psychologically, he could have done the same thing with Naruto. There could have been, like, before the fight even begins, rather than just, oh, you were born a failure and you will remain a failure, and just hammering that in. There could have been a little more to it to actually kind of get under Naruto's skin. Like, you want to be the Hokage, you want to be the Hokage, you want to lead all these people, but like you try to lead Hinata, you try to inspire her, and look what happened to her. It would have been would have been an interesting start to the fight. Just kind of show a bit of weakness on Naruto's part, like not just physical weakness, but like mental weakness.
Yeah, and what we were talking about earlier with Neji, like understanding Hinata, like I guess it was Hinata specifically, because otherwise, with Naruto, all he said was, you're right, that you were born a failure. Like, he kind of just knows about Naruto, but he's not really, like, observing him in the moment and seeing his, determination or will. Like, he's just, like, I guess he's not as observant as I thought he might have been. Well, I don't know, that's later. Maybe I'm misremembering. We'll get to that later. But yeah, it's just that those little, because of, the vagueness around being Hokage and what it takes to be a Hokage, those are the kind of things I think about that's just, like, I see more potential than Kishimoto necessarily followed through on, and I think, that's definitely, like, true of other aspects of the series, probably later on, too. Like, again, and we've talked about other things that apparently, like, Inner Sakura that don't get called back onto later, which are kind of questionable, but, yeah, it wasn't too big a deal, but it was an interesting thought that I had that, the series clearly isn't going to go in that direction. But, I think that's all I had to say on this fight.
I think it's just kind of the nature of recurring problem that we'll see a lot throughout the series, is that in most of the big moments, the big fights that Naruto takes part in, he, not to say that he doesn't ever lose, but most of the time he comes out on top. And I feel like this is why I really like characters like Gon and Izuku from My Hero Academia, is that you see them lose time and time again. But like they don't always lose, and
meaningfully too. Like, yes. Like, because Naruto gets, the piss taken out of him multiple times, but it's not like a major thing. Like, it's not this crushing defeat,
when Lee brushes him aside, like, it's just kind of comedic. It's a way to display Lee's power and build him up, because he just swats Naruto aside, but there's no real character moment for Naruto. He just gets back up and he's like, what happened? And that's just kind of the end of it.
Yeah.
There definitely could have been more with Naruto as a character, exploring more of his flaws to potentially make him more of a... Because, like, he's the underdog, but if he goes into all these fights and just wins time and time again, there's only so much mileage you can get out of that idea of the underdog, which, I mean, Kishimoto will end up going back on that later in the Pain arc, but maybe that's why he did it, because he didn't know how else to write an underdog. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's like, I remember hearing a line where you like a character for trying more than their successes, and I just think about, like, Hinata and Rock Lee in this part of the arc where they're trying, like, really hard, but they don't win, yet, especially Rock Lee versus Gaara, this is one of the most fondly remembered moments of the series, and reading it, like, I fully understand why, because, like, from a distance, kind of like not having a huge fondness for Naruto and hearing people talk about it, I'm like, yeah, I guess it was alright. I don't remember a lot. But actually reading it, I'm like, okay, yeah, no wonder people love this. This is great. So finally getting like the start of the fight, guy says, Lee, you can take off your weights. And like, this is a total cliche, but at the same time, the way you get these two giant explosions of dust, it's just so, I loved it. I was like, yeah, I don't care that this is I've seen this a million times before. This was cool, and then right before we start getting into the actual fight, because this is, I mean, it's also true of the Hinata versus Neji, where you have, this talent versus hard work. Hinata's finally putting in the hard work, but it's of course too little too late, so she gets destroyed by the genius that is Neji. And then you have Lee, who is a genius of hard work personified more so than, Naruto, which is more of a slight, you could say that as a slight against his character, but going against Gaara, this monster, this genius so talented that the Konoha Jonin are afraid of him, then, yeah, of course it's a good fight. Because, again, these two have been hyped up so much, but it works out. Because, like, Gaara was always hyped up more than Lee, but the fact that Lee still came so close, like, he was the first person to ever touch Gaara. And it's like, oh, shit, that's fucking awesome. Like, even though he loses, oh, it's so good.
I guess, I know, like, with that whole idea of these characters standing up and trying and failing, I guess at that point you kind of have to have Naruto do as well as he does, because, I mean, who else would be
at least
left?
For this arc, yeah. I mean, later they could have had, like, I guess he loses against Sasuke, though I have some things to say about that. But aside from that, like, at least early on, he really doesn't have a meaningful loss, I'd say. And for the Chunin Exams, that's fair. For later on, like, past Shippuden, like there maybe should have been some things that maybe there were, I don't remember. But go on, sorry.
Well, I mean, yeah, because that is I think that's a testament to, like, or not really a testament, but if you want to really drive home that theme, that hard work surpasses natural talent when talent doesn't work hard, you do have to have Naruto perform really well, because, like, I mean, there's no one else left. Like, who else would you pass that along to? You can't do it with Gaara or Neji because they're just gifted. Sasuke might have been able to take it because he was naturally gifted, but he's also being challenged to train, to work hard.
Yeah. Because
so
he's young.
But even then,
or how long had Gaara been a ninja? Because Neji and Lee are older than him, so it makes sense for them. But I don't remember Gaara because they seem older. Like, just looking at them, I think, yeah, they're a little bit older because they've gone on a B rank mission. So I feel like that's something that would happen after a short while of being a genin rather than like a few months, because it's only been like half a year, I think, since the start of the series, give or take.
Yeah, something to that effect. But I guess, yeah, as far as this theme goes, it really only could be Naruto, because you don't have any other character left standing that represents, like, who represents that underdog concept nearly as strongly. Because, like, Sasuke's not an underdog. There are other characters, like, I mean, Shikamaru, we don't really know much about him at this point. None of the Sand Ninja could really take it. And Shino, we don't know anything about Shino, so it's just... It had to be Naruto. It had to be Naruto who would take
the way
it home,
he has, like, his bugs makes me think of him more as talent, or not necessarily talent or genius, but, like, predisposition, I guess would be another word, because he had to, like, be specifically raised for his body to be a hive for these insects. Like, that's not something you could just work hard to get. So that's why I've always sort of felt of him that way, while comparatively Kiba had to, like, his relationship with Orochimaru is similar, but different enough, I'd say, that you can at least make the more of an argument for, and personality-wise, he's definitely closer to Naruto, but hard work, it's not really, like, focused on enough for him, and you do have Hinata for that case where she's just not talented at all. She's just not, even though she does have this Kekai Genkai with the Byakugan, she's no good at it compared to Neji.
Yeah, that's because, like, if you want to figure out who is just the natural talent part of the group, just think of all the characters who don't have any shot to them training, really. Like with Shino, when he's brought in, this just is his power. Like there's no scenes of him building up to it. Whereas with Lee and Hinata, you get flashbacks of them training, trying to better themselves. Yeah. And then of course, I mean, Naruto, we've seen it.
Of course.
But I'm getting a little hung up on this theme. Let's talk about my favorite fight in the entire series, Gaara vs. Rock Lee, and how, I mean, you did mention the weight dropping scene, and that's really the moment, like, if you're going to get invested in Naruto, if you have any chance of, like, enjoying this series, that's the moment that hooks you. That's what, you know, all these chapters in, that's what gets you. When Lee drops the weight, you're set for life. Even if you fall out of interest with the series, you're probably still gonna maybe not finish it, but you're gonna stick along far more than you maybe thought you would.
Yeah, that's fair. Cause, God, yeah, that's a great bit. And then because he just goes which makes it all the more tragic that Kishimoto does nothing with Lee's character after this. There we go with the missed potentials yet again.
But go on, you had something to say.
Yeah, it's just, well, because he uses, you know, that, and then he uses that. He uses, like, all of his that's. And then he uses a fourth that we didn't even know about. The extra gates and stuff, because we get the introduction to the gates for the first time. And, like, he goes all out, and he still loses, so it's, like, it's heart-wrenching because he can never be a ninja again. Perhaps he can, it's or low probability as we see, because he does in fact become a ninja again. But
well, this is another. Now that you mentioned that, this could have been another like interesting moment for, like, if we want to talk about this potential characterization for Naruto. Like, he sets up Hinata to get destroyed by Neji. Then you have Lee here, who could have been an interesting. Like, obviously the parallels with Naruto have been outlined very clearly, but if you have Lee actually like not become a ninja, because let's face it, when he does become a ninja again, he shows up once for one other significant appearance, which even then is just kind of stalling for time.
Yeah,
but you could have maybe had Lee not, like, this happens and he can't become a ninja, and that could kind of be another parallel to Naruto, kind of show the consequences of, and you know, that, like, even if you don't do that, I'm interested in that. The Lee dynamic, at least as far as I remember, I don't think it plays a huge role in the fight with Neji. Like, Neji could have brought up how Lee he like destroyed his body, but even then he still couldn't win. And it just well, even if it's not brought up,
even if it's not brought up directly, like, you still have like these hard workers losing to geniuses. It still lends more credence to his ideas of fate and, you know, genius being, you know, stronger than hard work, and, you know, if you're destined to be a loser, you're always going to be a loser. So having these characters lose builds him up in a way, like, he's able to still hold on to that pride of his even into before he fights Naruto, when it actually gets put to a head, you know. So because otherwise, if you do have these hard workers winning, then it's sort of like, well, Rock Lee won, Neji, so why don't you shut the fuck up? You know, that, like, obviously that couldn't happen, you know. So
yeah.
Like, I don't think there's another fight where a talented character is set against a hard worker and the hard worker wins. Like, I don't think there's one in the preliminaries. So
no, I don't think there were any like that.
But yeah, I think. All right, did you have anything else to say about the fight? Because yeah, it was really cool. It was neat seeing all of Gaara's abilities and seeing him being caught off guard. Like, because again, he'd been built up as this untouchable badass, but then, oh shit, Lee is able to, you know, catch him off guard and blow through his defenses and, you know, intimidate him. And, well, okay, Gaara was having a really good time, though, as when he broke his sand mask, you see his creepy smile, like, he's having a blast. And then he breaks Lee's arms, and he's still willing to fight. He's still he's the hardest worker. He is a genius of hard work. And then he passes out while standing. Like, so many cool bits. Like, it's such a good fight.
Yeah, there's just, like, if you want to talk about this, like, some of the fights that Kishimoto makes kind of run the risk of making characters, like, writing them kind of 50-50, that they don't look strong enough, or characters that are supposed to look stronger, or rather but I think this fight does it well, whereas, like, how Gaara shows up and he's never been touched, and like you said, Lee is the first one to lay hands on him, but not only does he just punch him once, he nearly wins the fight, he nearly takes him out.
Yeah, but it's done in a way that, like, I don't feel like Gaara was made to look weaker because he was touched by Lee. It just makes Lee look stronger, and Gaara's still like, because Gaara breaks his arms and Lee is still willing to fight, like or his arm and his leg, and Lee is still willing to fight on, like that doesn't take away from Gaara at all. That only builds up Lee.
No.
Yeah.
And especially when you consider the consequences of Lee's power, that the only way, like, when he uses the first Lotus, where Gaara is able to, he does that sand substitution or whatever it was that he did.
Yeah, or the sand armor. There was a couple different things he did.
But like when Lee does all the stuff that doesn't really destroy him, like at least then, I just completely lost my train of thought. But what I was getting to is that when Lee does manage to actually deal significant damage to Gaara, like, it's at a severe cost to his own health. Like, when he opens up the gates, which, by the way, the gates are, I think, it's a really cool concept. The fact that, like, he's just releasing the restraints on his body, which gives him this massive power, but at the same time, there's
huge downside. Well,
yeah.
I guess the issue with those, because that type of technique isn't too unusual in shonen stuff, where you have a downside, like in this case, it mattered to Lee because, he's out of the fight until he can get healed up. But for other characters, you can't just give that ability to other characters easily, because, you can't just knock a character out of a fight for a long period of time. So it's got to be, managed, a common one is, their lifespan, that, they lose years off their lifespan, because that's not going to actually affect the story. If they lose 50 years off their lifespan, but they're only 10, and they have 20 years to live, then it's not going to affect the story, too much. But
then also, I don't think there's any better character in this story that could get it, because we see how far Lee has had to go just to even attain his normal skill. Like, he has to wear these huge weights, and you get that flashback where he's doing 1,000 push-ups and the jump rope.
If I fail to do 1,000 push-ups, I'll do 500 sit-ups and all that stuff.
All this crazy training that he has to go through. So he already has had to go through so much adversity, so much hardship to even get to the level he's at now. But then it's a way to take that a step further by releasing the gates. Like, it really helps to drive home his conviction that he's really dead set on proving that hard work it overcomes natural talent, and the fact that he wants to defeat Neji, it really just strengthens his resolve all the more. Whereas
because he's not slacking.
But if you had given that to another character who hadn't been so devoted to training, it might have felt like,
of course you lost. You didn't put everything in. But yeah, because Lee put so much in, and because it showed through so much during the fight, it just makes that loss all the more tragic, because you just want him to work. You just wanted him to win because he's so lovable and Gaara's so not. But at the same time, Gaara's just this. He got the worst possible luck of the draw, and yeah.
It's a way I feel like Lee works up to this power, because it's not just any character can just use the 8 gates. It's not just given to Neji, who doesn't do anything, but he's like, and I can also push myself beyond the power I have now. No, with Lee, he goes through all the training, and so this, I feel like he earns it. It's not just a cheap way for Lee to gain more power, because he's already done all the training, so this is just another way for him to, attain a higher threshold of power, but at the same time, it's not just some power-up, there is a downside to it. I guess, if any, that's why I would say that Lee is, the most deserving in this narrative for that power, because, if you had given it to someone who didn't have to do all that training, it would have just felt kind of cheap, that, I have the resolve to jeopardize my own body, to put my life at risk, but without having done the training, it's kind of hollow.
Yeah, it feels like an ability designed for Lee in that sense. Yeah. Aside from that, the last thing I had to say on the fight, or rather after the fight, were Tamari's he never had a chance, but she's got a sweat drop on her head, she's sweating, cause she's being all cocky, yeah, of course Gaara won. Lee never had a chance, but at the same time, because Gaara was so stressed, I love the moment where I think Lee goes 5th gate and he starts bouncing Gaara around, pinballing him it's fucking Dragon Ball or something. Fucking great. It
was amazing. I like how Kankuro just goes over to talk to Naruto he's I'm gonna gather intel, but he doesn't really do much. It's just a way to get some exposition for Gaara.
Right. So that Naruto can hear it specifically. Because if it was just the audience, then it could have been... Well, it would have been dumb for Kankuro and Tamari to talk about it, because they already know full well what Gaara's deal is.
Yeah.
But, So yeah,
But
I guess.
I thought it was kind of funny how it's played off like, oh, I'm gonna go gather information, and then Naruto knows nothing. It's like, well, you're helpful. This totally works.
That's Naruto for you. But anyway, so yeah, after that, or did you have? Was that everything you had to say on the fight?
Other than it's amazing, my favorite fight in the series. That's about it.
I can see why. So yeah, I am done too. After that was Choji and Dosu, and which we already kind of talked about, honestly. Like, I don't really have anything more to say. Like, it was kind of, like, after the League versus Gaara fight, like, it's understandable that it would be a disappointment. You know, kind of a shame for Choji to be the one to bear the brunt of it because he kind of does nothing, and then it goes nowhere because Dosu gets killed anyway, so...
Which I don't...
Rest in peace.
I don't like that they just kill him off. Like, I felt like there could have been an interesting... some sort of a payoff with his character, because now he's aware of Orochimaru's plans, that Orochimaru doesn't care about them, and there could have been, like, I'm not saying that he had to become a major character, that he didn't have to stay alive, like, but the way that Gaara just kind of takes him out without, like, it's not a fight in a tournament, it's just, well, we have 9 people, so let's just trim it down to 8, let's just cut this guy. I felt like there was a little more to his story that we could have seen, especially considering how much screen time he had gotten so far. Like, he was the leader of that 3-man squad, and he has such a great design too. Like, he looks intimidating, and his power is great. The manipulation of sound.
I'd almost call them like the secondary main antagonists of the Forest of Death arc, like after Orochimaru himself, because they're just the ones, you know, they fight with Naruto, then they each have a notable fight against, well, except for Dosu, like the other two. I mean, like the chick fights Shikamaru, and the other guy fights Shino, so they're present more so than most of the other antagonists, you know. Like the Rain guys and Orochimaru, so they're almost, you could almost call them the main antagonists of this first half of the arc. But yeah, and then they're just sort of like taken away. Yeah, they served their purpose, so Kishimoto decided he didn't need them anymore. So yeah, whatever.
Like, at least with Zaku, like, we kind of got insight into his backstory, and it just, like, the way it was paralleled with Orochimaru talking with Kakashi about how they're just pawns, and Zaku completely failing and getting destroyed by Shino. And, like, with the girl, there was never really anything there. She was just
how was
there.
that in the anime? Because I heard they censored his arms blowing up.
Yeah, instead of, like, one of his arms getting blown off, they just kind of...
stopped
like,
working?
The air explodes, and then they just go limp.
Ooh, okay,
That's
so yeah.
it.
But, yeah, again, not quite as gory as the manga, but that's understandable, because having your arms blown off is a little much, maybe. So yeah, I think it's all downhill from here. Because with a peak like that, where else can you go? The Broccoli versus Gaara, I mean, obviously. I don't know, but I mean, the next... we're still not done with the Chunin exams. We've got the other half to go. That'll be next time. If you want to read along, go for it. We do list the chapters in the title, but we really can't give that information of what we're going to read next beforehand, because especially, like, for now it's a little easier, but we also kind of play it by ear. So we don't necessarily know what we're going to read, especially when we get into other series where the arcs aren't so cleanly listed. So we have no idea how much we're going to read before the next episode. But, I don't know. Yeah, if you want to read along, then cool. It'd be fun. Then you could comment more, and we could respond to your comments, and yeah. Anyway, if you want to, you can also listen to the podcast on SoundCloud. I'll be uploading the episodes there, so you can listen to it there. And the next episode, though, is not going to be on this channel. You'll be putting it on your side channel, right?
Yeah, just because the way the YouTube algorithm works, it seems like if you put out the more lesser viewed videos, then it kind of destroys your traffic as a whole. I think that's how that works. That seems to be what I've gathered from other people.
And I mean, I'm sure they're probably not doing as well as your other analytical videos, or well, we only have one episode so far. So it's like, you'll be clogging up your feed for people who don't care about the podcast or find it unlistenable or whatever, you know, so yeah, it'll be, I'm pretty sure you link your side channel in the description. So I think, yeah, just subscribe to that channel for the Chunin Exams Part 2. And we will catch you next time.
See ya then.